Chapter 66. Yes, Mr. Gu wants to make a deal. Just say it. As long as our horror affairs department can do something, there will be absolutely no excuses. The other elders also spoke in deep voices, making promises without hesitation. The 5 of them have a high position and weight in the outside world, and stomping their feet can make human society tremble 3 times. But now they all concentrated their attention, solemnly, respectfully and humbly waiting for Gu Yuan to speak. It's like the kind of student who waits for the teacher to speak. Gu Yuan calmly raised his hand, pointing to the strange things piled up like a mountain. Valuable things, such as the writing brush that can only read memory through blood. He has already picked it up in advance. The rest of them are all 1-star to 4-star weird things. The level is too low, and they are tasteless. Even if it is absorbed by mythology, the improvement it can bring is minimal. It's better to use it as a bargaining chip in a deal with the Horror Affairs Department. Do you accept these things? Lu Jiangwo and the others glanced at it. It's all a heartbeat. They are all old fritters who are used to the scene, so they naturally understand that this must be the legacy of the Demon King. Gu Yuan not only killed Tong Wanyan, but also ransacked the entire house of Yao Guishi. As the 3rd-ranked non-governmental trickster organization, the Yao Gish's family background is naturally very rich. Even the really good things in it have been taken away by Gu Yuan. But what is left is still a huge amount, almost 1/10 of what the original treasury had hidden. Maybe these things are too low-level to help Gu Yuan. Not so with the Horror Division. The Department of Horror Affairs is a huge organization with countless low-level members. These weird things have a huge effect on them. At that moment, Lu Jiangwo spoke without hesitation. Mr. Gu, we all want these things. However, what does Mr. Gu want from us? Gu Yuan raised his hand. 533, a deceitful banknote like rough white paper money appeared in his palm. Lu Jiangwo glanced at it and said curiously, "Is this the trick note?" Gu Yuan nodded his head and said firmly, "I hope that I can exchange these things for the treacherous banknotes in the hands of your Horror Affairs Department. As for the specific quantity, I believe that you must have a system of exchange rules internally, and everything will follow the rules." Lu Jiangwo pondered for a moment, looking back at the other elders. Everyone nodded silently. Deceitful banknotes are not rare. Many human players have obtained them, and there are many in the treasury of Horror Affairs. It is very cost-effective to use this kind of thing to execute transactions in exchange for a large number of weird things. And most importantly, they can also take the opportunity to open up the situation and establish a stable trading relationship with Mr. Gu. There is absolutely no reason to refuse. Lu Jiangwo immediately spoke in a deep voice. "Mr. Gu, please wait a moment. We have such things as fraudulent banknotes, but it will take some time to transfer them to Haicheng." Gu Yuan nodded slightly, agreeing. He still has a lot of time. As long as you can get this resource before entering Haicheng Amusement Park. Lu Jiangwo got up in a hurry, went outside, and made a call. "I'm Lu Jiangwo, yes, you heard that right. Immediately pack all the treacherous banknotes in the inventory and transport them to Haicheng as quickly as possible by a special night watchman team. In addition, quickly contact the heads of all cities and let them collect trick money from all human players. At the same time, contact those non-governmental trickster organizations with stable cooperation and buy the trick money in their hands. At all costs, the more the better. Send them to Haicheng. Remember, be quick. If something goes wrong, you can directly resign for me." Lu Jiangwo's tone was very severe, decisive, and full of majesty. In front of Gu Yuan, he was cautious, courteous, and courteous. But in front of other treacherous masters, he is always the elder with lofty authority and undeniable words. This order was conveyed as quickly as possible. For a while, from the headquarters of the Department of Horror Affairs to various urban security areas, and then to various civil organizations, they all started to get into action. Countless human players ran around, made countless phone calls, and completed countless transactions in the middle of bargaining. Almost the entire world of the Slayers moved, just to be able to collect the most trick money in the shortest time. Soon, a squad of extremely terrifying night watchmen arrived in Haicheng. Send over a dozen huge boxes to Gu Yuan. When the box was opened, there were neatly stacked white paper money inside, filled with a gloomy atmosphere. "Mr. Gu, this is all the trick money we can raise so far, and it's all here. In terms of quantity, the total is 1,388,719. Lu Jiangwo spoke in a deep voice. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. The amount of this fraudulent banknote far exceeded his imagination. There are more than 1 million. Perhaps, in the current process of the horror game, 95% of the trick money obtained by human players is here. The Horror Affairs Department is indeed a very large organization, and the efficiency of this work is really terrifying to the extreme. Certainly, there are only people like Gu Yuan to have such a huge influence. In one sentence, the huge organizational machine of the Horror Affairs Department is fully activated. This is something no one else can do. You guys are nice. Gu Yuan was not polite, directly raised his hand, and brought all the trick money into the mythical space. There are such a huge amount of fraudulent banknotes. When meeting that smiling clown tonight, Gu Yuan will have to use money to knock him into a daze. This is the real money can make ghosts turn around. Lu Zhengwo laughed lightly. As long as you are satisfied. Gu Yuan glanced at him and said unhurriedly, I have a second deal. You say. Lu Zhengwo looked solemn. An instinct told him that this second transaction might be more important than the first one. I hope I can use your intelligence system to help me find some things. I don't know the specific goal. I can only give you some keywords. Gu Yuan dipped his finger in some tea and wrote a few words on the thick 8 immortals table. Paperman. Test paper. The other side. Coins. These things are all the doubts that Gu Yuan has not solved yet. They seem to be unrelated to each other, but they seem to have some kind of secret connection, and they all involve the deepest things behind the horror game. Gu Yuan wanted to investigate, but felt like a chicken without a head and didn't know where to start. This feeling is mainly because there is too little information at hand now. The Department of Horror Affairs is an extremely large organization that can touch the vast majority of human players. The intelligence information that can be collected will definitely be vast. There may be some things in it that can bring different inspiration to Gu Yuan. This is a long-term deal. I don't give you a time limit. If you have any new news, you can send me a message immediately. In return, after you provide me with enough weighty information, I will take action to solve a weird incident for you. Of course, under the circumstances within one's ability. Gu Yuan's eyes were serious and his voice was cold. Heard the words. Lu Zhengwo and the other 5 elders couldn't help but feel moved. There was a look of deep surprise in his eyes. Help with a weird event. This promise is simply too heavy. Who is Gu Yuan? He is able to suppress the out-of-control big murderous place. Able to unleash ghost creatures covering a city. Tong Wanyan, who stood at the pinnacle of mankind, could be easily crushed to death. Can wipe out the third-ranked demon society without any effort. For such a character, a casual promise is more important than Mount Tai. Present. Lu Zhengwo nodded solemnly without hesitation. Mr. Gu, don't worry. I will keep this request firmly in my heart. In the intelligence work of the Department of Horror Affairs in the future, intelligence related to these 4 words will be the highest priority. After returning to the headquarters, I will immediately extract capable intelligence personnel and set up a special agency to collect and analyze relevant information. This is the attitude of the Department of Horror Affairs. According to the highest specification, to meet the requirements of Gu Yuan, Li Jiaojiao, who was standing aside, was staring at the 8 characters on the table in a daze, as if she was a little absent-minded. He hesitated for a moment. She whispered uncertainly, Mr. Gu, I seem to have seen clues about the paper figurine you mentioned, but I don't know if it's what you need. Her voice paused slightly. His face was a little pale, and a look of deep fear flashed in his eyes. It seems that I have thought of something extremely terrifying again. In Lincheng, there is a place called Annal Old Street, which is a very old-fashioned old street that sells everything. Then horror games came, and it got corrupted and turned into a murderous place. I once went to explore. In the old street, there is a paper-making shop, and there are all kinds of paper figurines in it. There was a gleam in Gu Yuan's eyes. I didn't expect to get clues about the paper figurines so soon. Lincheng, Annal Old Street, a paper shop? Perhaps. The 5 extremely clever coffin bearers beside him are inextricably linked with this paper-making shop. On the side, Pang Wanchun hastily added, Mr. Gu, if you are going to Lincheng, you must be cautious. There was a terrible out-of-control phenomenon in that place called Annal Old Street some time ago. In order to suppress the loss of control, our Horror Affairs Department also paid a huge price. 3 veterans and 4 night watchman squads were all killed. And even with such a big sacrifice, it still can't control the situation. With Lin City as the center, the entire area of thousands of miles has been engulfed by gray fog. No one knows what's going on inside now, and no one dares to go there. The eyes of all the elders darkened, and they lowered their heads and sighed. That battle back then was an eternal pain for the Jingjing Affairs Department. What a loss. If it weren't for that incident, the Department of Horror Affairs would now be 8 elders. Gu Yuan frowned. The light in the eyes is even more brilliant. I couldn't help but feel boundless waves surging in my heart. As a witness of the out-of-control of the murderous place, Gu Yuan is very clear about the inside story of the out-of-control situation. Fengqing number 3 primary school out of control. That's because he forced the skeleton to be weird and wanted to track down the situation related to the special test paper. And the skeleton whispered a terrible prayer before dying, and then attracted a terrible curse. Now there is a similar out-of-control phenomenon in Annal Old Street. Does that mean, on the other side of Annal Old Street, have mysterious prayers sounded? Thinking about it further, would there be such a special and weird test paper in Annal Old Street? Simultaneously related to the 2 elements of paper figurines and test papers, the water in Annal Old Street is not so deep. It seems that I should take some time to go to Annal Old Street, Gu Yuan murmured in his heart. There is already a decision in mind. Let's settle the matter of the Haicheng amusement park in the event of the Red Moon Feast that has been scheduled long ago. He is about to rush to Annal Old Street to find out. Prepare me a copy of the relevant archives on Annal Old Street. Gu Yuan spoke in a deep voice. Lu Zhengwo nodded and didn't say much. He will naturally fully cooperate with this request. If there is one person in this world who can set up Ping and Lo Old Street, then it can only be Mr. Gu in front of him. After completing the transaction, Lu Zhengwo and the other 5 elders hurriedly bid farewell and left. They have to rush back to the capital to take charge of the overall situation. And Gu Yuan is alone, sitting in this gloomy old house, quietly waiting for the night to come. The red moon rises. Gu Yuan looked at the Ferris wheel covered with dense corpses from afar. The scarlet and gloomy moonlight poured down and shrouded it, making those corpses seem to come alive. They are twisting and wriggling, as if a Ferris wheel is beckoning to tourists, filled with extreme horror and splendor. The bloody screen of the horror game jumped. The 5th night of terror has come. Oh, your eyes seem to be focusing on the amusement park in the distance. Go. You will get real happiness there. Countless dead bodies will cheer with you. Countless weird ones will dance with you. Ominous rides are just for you. It is the happiest place in the world. No one is willing to leave after entering it. Attention. You have sent a new task. Mission objective. Find the source of happiness in the amusement park. Task description. In a special amusement project, happiness is eternal. Light up the joy and you'll get it all. Reward for completing the task depends on the degree of completion of the task. Mission failure penalty. Maybe you will become part of the amusement park. Gu Yuan frowned, subconsciously repeating the task description. In a particular ride, is happiness eternal? Light the joy? Get it all? It's such a plausible description again. The Riddler really deserves to die. However, what is initially certain is that the opportunity for 3.0 to complete the task is hidden in one of the rides. Moreover, Tong Wanyan's special ticket to an unknown place is also a reward after completing the entertainment project. If you want to find relevant clues, you must also participate in the game. He no longer hesitated. He snapped his fingers lightly. The 5 paper figurines were weird, and immediately rushed over and placed the coffin in front of Gu Yuan. Master, we are already ready. The leading paper figurine was weird, still looking like a dog. This posture, combined with his horrifying and weird face, is inconsistent no matter how you look at it. Haicheng Amusement Park. The iron gate is full of rust, and the light board of the amusement park at the highest point is on and off, making a squeaky sound, which seems to be in poor contact. There is a towering sculpture in front of the door. It was a princess, wearing an extremely luxurious long dress, with shiny crystal shoes on her feet, obviously very dignified and elegant, graceful and luxurious. The shape of her face is also extremely beautiful. Her forehead, eyes, and nose are all very delicate, like a work of art. Only that mouth is extremely inconsistent. One end is picked up, and the other end is bent down, forming a horizontal S shape. It's as if her lips belong to 2 different minds. One wants to laugh, and the other wants to cry. So eerie and spooky. Gu Yuan just glanced at it, then looked away. In such a strange and fierce place, it is normal to have such a strange statue. He stepped forward directly, past the statue, and walked towards the gate of the amusement park. And the head of this princess statue also kept swinging along with Gu Yuan. His eyes kept following Gu Yuan, until the moment Gu Yuan completely stepped into the amusement park. The corners of her mouth suddenly changed, and both ends drooped down, completely turning into a crying face. As if mourning for Gu Yuan. End of chapter. Chapter 67. Yuan walked into the amusement park. Did not act hastily. He stood quietly at the door, carefully scanning his surroundings. Compared with the desolation and loneliness outside the amusement park, inside, there is another scene. Numerous colorful lights hang high on both sides of the road, and the colorful light interweaves on the ground, converging into some kind of weird pattern. The Ferris wheel rotated slowly, covered with distorted corpses, like overgrown weeds. The roller coaster crossed the track, and there was no one on it, but the frightened screams echoed. The merry-go-round horse is piled up with broken limbs and arms, and when it turns, it is still dripping with blood. All the amusement facilities are filled with an extremely terrifying atmosphere. They are displayed in different positions, just like a hell that is open everywhere, welcoming the arrival of guests. In all directions, there is a faint smell of corpses, which makes people feel goosebumps uncontrollably and feel a lingering chill. Is there really any joy in such a horrible place? What kind of amusement facilities will the so-called source of happiness be hidden in? Yuan thought silently. And he's not the only guest at this thrilling amusement park. On the road at this time, there have been many tourists. Many human players looked frightened and horrified, scanning their surroundings with some trepidation. No one dared to speak loudly, for fear that if they were not careful, they would bring that terrible disaster to themselves. If it has not accidentally triggered the task, then give them 100 guts, and they dare not enter this terrifying and weird place. A group of people gathered together, looked at Yuan from a distance, and whispered, not knowing what they were talking about. Next moment, a very youthful and beautiful woman with double ponytails and jeans stepped out of the crowd and trotted towards Yuan. Brother, have you just arrived at the amusement park? What mission did you receive? Yuan glanced at her coldly and didn't speak. The woman trembled subconsciously. In an instant, goosebumps covered her fair neck. There was a terrifying chill that enveloped the body in an instant. This is a feeling that I have never had when facing strange creatures. It was as if the man in front of him was more terrifying than those weird creatures. She took a deep breath and explained in a panic. Oh, brother, I'm sorry. I know the content of the mission is the privacy of a trick master. I didn't mean to offend you. My name is Zhou Zishuan, and I'm a 2-star mid-level dangerous person. My mission is to complete a certain ride tonight. A few people over there are in the same situation as me. What I think is, if you also need to complete the amusement project, then maybe we can have room for cooperation. She speaks very fast and quickly tells the whole story about herself. It seems that they want to use this method to express their sincerity and dispel Yuan's vague hostility. Yuan's face was expressionless and calm, making it hard to see his true thoughts. He just said lightly, "Go on." Zhou Zishuan breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Brother, you should have seen it too. This amusement park is very scary. Almost every kind of amusement project is incomparably eerie and weird. Like the Ferris wheel full of dead bodies and the screaming roller coaster, the danger factor is particularly high at first glance. If you really want to play, the chance of surviving is too slim. In contrast, I think, there may be the best choice." As she spoke, she raised her finger and pointed to the other side. Over there, a specific area was circled with scarlet blood, and there was a kind of shadow shrouded in it. Dozens of strange toy dolls and 2 toy guns that looked extremely cheap and low quality were neatly placed on the ground, motionless. There is also a bundle of black bamboo rings at the front. It looks like a ring item that is common in night markets. It looks weird here too, but compared with the Ferris wheel, roller coaster, and merry-go-round in the distance, it's so normal that I want to cry. I surmise that the hoop should be one of the easiest projects and the one with the best chance of surviving. But there is a threshold for this ring project. 10 human players need to participate together, and then the ring project will start. We have gathered 9 people now, and we are short of the last one. I came here just to ask, brother, do you have any ideas for participating? Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. Feral? Must 10 people participate together to open it? What a strange rule. And, is this project really safe? Will this horror paradise full of despair and horror really leave such an obvious way out for human players? He always felt that the situation was not as simple as Zhou Zishuan thought. But, when Yuan came to Haicheng Amusement Park, he definitely wanted to participate in the rides. He didn't know where the so-called source of happiness was hidden. Without further clues, can only blind luck. It is a good choice to participate in this ring project and seek to break the deadlock. After all, if Yuan misses this cooperation invitation, there is no way for Yuan to open the ring alone. With this in mind, Gu Yuan nodded slightly. Okay, I'm with you. Hearing this, a hint of joy immediately appeared on Zhou Zishuan's pretty face. Very good. Then come with me, let's start as soon as possible. The sooner you end the ride, the sooner you can leave this nightmare place. Zhou Zishuan turned around and brought Gu Yuan to the periphery of the crowd. Brother Wang, he agreed. The man called Brother Wang seemed to be the leader of the group. He nodded, and then said very seriously, since we have enough people, we can start. Before we start, let me stress it again. I guess, the rules of this ring project should be that a certain number of dolls must be caught in order to be considered a successful completion. I used to be known as the Little Prince of the Night Market, and I have personally set up 800 dolls if not 1,000. I have a wealth of experience. I will be in charge of the ring this time, and it must be safe. And based on past experience, this process will definitely not be so peaceful, and there may be various strange forces interfering. What the rest of you have to do is to help me withstand the invasion of those strange forces so that I can perform safely and steadily. Everyone nodded in agreement. Gu Yuan also did not express dissent. He always felt that this loop should not be that simple. There may be some unknown danger. Since this Brother Wang himself is willing to try it out, Gu Yuan is naturally happy to see it succeed. Look at the situation first, then make a decision. Everyone quickly came to the front of the ring project and settled in the designated area. Next moment, immediately, a burst of strange music sounded from the surrounding microphones. The sound of this music is very hoarse, and the combination of notes is also very strange. It does not have the smoothness of normal music tunes, but it is jerky and stiff. It's like there is a child who doesn't understand music theory at all, knocking out the noise aimlessly. It's extremely difficult to hear. Among the music, intermittent human voices sounded. It seems to be a reminder, but it also seems to be a warning. Hee, the number of people satisfies the requirements. The ring game starts, be careful, don't be caught. Before everyone heard what was said, the sound stopped abruptly. At this time, Brother Wang happened to walk up to the dark bamboo circle. This kind of ring project is really trivial. Let me show you what is called the Little Prince of Rings. He smiled and raised his hand to get the bamboo ring. And the moment his fingers touched the bamboo ring, strange and scary things happened. The pitch-black bamboo ring suddenly swelled up, engulfing Brother Wang with lightning speed. Brother Wang's complexion changed drastically, and there was a bit of panic in his eyes. Subconsciously want to drive the weird puzzle you were driving, but found out with horror. I seem to have lost contact with the weird jigsaw puzzle in my body, and I can't mobilize it at all. At this moment, he is no different from ordinary people. Help me. Help me. He growled wildly. But it was too late. His body, the speed shrink zone visible to the naked eye. The luster of the skin faded quickly, and it became as if it was sewn from sackcloth. The face also began to become as haggard as wood. A pair of eyes completely lost their spirit and turned into two dull black buttons. In the blink of an eye, a living person becomes an old puppet. What's happening here? Brother Wang, is he dead? Zhou Zishuan's eyes were terrified, and she couldn't help but let out a low voice. The others were also incomparably horrified. There is a lot of fear in the eyes. This scene was simply too terrifying, and it brought them an unparalleled shock. A big living person, just gone. This way of dying as a puppet is weirder and more frightening than the normal way of dying. Gu Yuan stood in the corner without speaking, eyes narrowed. A terrifying thought crossed my mind. He seems to understand the rules of this ring project a little bit. Cluck cluck. Creepy laughter rang out. In front of them, those dolls that were originally neatly arranged like hoop prizes stood up strangely, and then became the size of adults. On their faces, there was that kind of stiff and evil smile. He staggered forward a step. Everyone picked up the black bamboo ring one by one. His indifferent and cruel eyes turned to the people standing in the ring area. So, is this the real way to play the hoop project? Gu Yuan's eyes were cold, and he muttered to himself. Until now, only then did he understand. Why do you need to gather 10 people to start this amusement project, and one person can't do it? Because in this project, the things that really need to be caught are actually human players like them. They are the prizes of this ride. Which stall only has one prize? Putting 10 humans as prizes makes it look less shabby. Pay attention to dodging, don't be caught by the bamboo trap. Otherwise you will be like that unlucky guy just now, become a puppet and die. Gu Yuan spoke in a deep voice, reminding him. Heard the words. The other human players looked at each other, trembling fiercely, and the fear in their eyes became more intense. They chose the ring project because this project seems the easiest and gentlest. But now it seems they seem to have made a big mistake. Hidden under the calmness, there are such hideous and terrifying rules. Get caught and die. No, judging from Brother Wong's death, it doesn't even need to be completely set. Just touch it. This kind of project, even looking at the entire amusement park, is probably the most dangerous one. I don't play anymore. I don't want to be a Muppet, a man exclaimed. Run as fast as you can. He wants to escape from this horrible area. He wants to live. But just when he stepped out of the red line drawn by blood, he suddenly trembled, as if he had encountered some kind of extremely terrifying attack. It melted directly, turning into a ball of foul-smelling blood. Can't log out. Once this amusement project starts, there are only two possibilities. Either live to the end or die. Ahead, those dolls are weird and have already started to move. A purple bear doll waved first. The black bamboo circle pierced the sky, and with a kind of extreme terror, it crashed into the 8 human players who were still alive in the arena. Only Yuan remained calm. The other human players screamed and ran to dodge. The bamboo ring fell to the ground without touching any humans. Yuan narrowed his eyes. Will the bamboo circle remain on the ground? This is not good news. Even if it falls on the ground, the strange power attached to the bamboo ring will definitely not disappear. If you step on it, there is a high probability that 803 will be attacked by terrifying and strange things, and there is a risk of turning into a doll. In this way, it is tantamount to further compressing the safe zone and reducing the space for human players to move around. This project is scarier than I expected. Start with the purple bear doll. The other weird dolls also all moved. One after another, the bamboo rings came flying. Some of them caught human players, brutally deprived them of their lives, and turned them into worn-out puppets. And some fell to the ground, becoming dangerous traps. There is less and less space for human players to hide from. The living conditions are getting worse and worse. Soon, 8 people have already died, and only 3 are left. Yuan, Zhou Zixuan, and another man. The faces of Zhou Zixuan and that man were covered with dense cold sweat. Both of them are already close to a limit. Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. While avoiding the attack of the bamboo circle, he was thinking calmly. How should it be broken? With his current strength, he can give up the game directly and forcibly flip the table. But these weird dolls can't stop him. But the problem is, this is the first project of Haiching Amusement Park. The Ferris wheel, the roller coaster, the carousel, and the crying clown that may appear at any time. This is the follow-up danger. Yuan's power is limited. It's not wise to spend all of it here. In addition to flipping the table and not playing, there will definitely be a chance to follow the rules and survive. Yuan looked around. His gaze suddenly turned to the red dotted line at the feet of the weird dolls. That's the line that separates the ring players and the prizes. A bold idea suddenly flooded into Yuan's mind. Perhaps there is a way out. Black bamboo circle. It is invalid there. Think here. Yuan stepped forward without hesitation. Seeing his movements, Zhou Zixuan couldn't help being slightly taken aback. Is this driven crazy and doesn't want to live? The closer the offline, the easier it is to be caught by the bamboo trap. But the next moment, Zhou Zixuan pressed her own idea. Everyone else can be crazy, but this man can't be crazy. Just now she was secretly observing this man. Since the beginning of the project, this man has never shown any panicked look. He is so calm and rational. His psychological quality far exceeds anyone Zhou Zixuan has ever met before. His bold action must have found a flaw in this trap project. He pondered for a while. Zhou Zixuan reacted. In a pair of clear and beautiful eyes, there is a strong expression of amazement. She knows what Yuan wants to do. This man is too smart and decisive. Even in this horrific situation, there was no disturbance. From this near-mortal crisis situation, he forcibly found the only way out. What kind of existence is this? As if born for weird events. End of chapter. Chapter 68. Run. Follow him. Rush over and live. Zhou Zixuan greeted her. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and followed Yuan closely. The other surviving male player was slightly taken aback, and then suddenly realized. Run forward quickly. Yuan's action gave him a glimmer of hope of survival. But in the process of running wildly, he accidentally stepped on a black bamboo ring that fell to the ground. Then in his frightened and desperate eyes, the bamboo ring swelled and wrapped around his body, mercilessly devouring his vitality. Of the 10 human players who participated in this trap game, Only Gu Yuan and Zhou Zixuan crossed the red dotted line alive. The mortality rate is as high as 80%. And after crossing the red dotted line, the movements of the weird dolls stopped immediately. Seems to be completely missing the point. The black bamboo rings that hadn't been thrown yet hung on their hands, exuding a cold and evil aura. Live? Survived? Thanks to you. Zhou Zixuan collapsed on the ground, panting heavily. Her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. She looked at Gu Yuan with unconcealable awe and admiration. If it weren't for this man to lead, then she will definitely not be able to find this escape path. I can only bear the strange attack from the black bamboo ring like everyone else and turn into that ugly puppet. However, Gu Yuan replied coldly. You are too happy. What? Zhou Zixuan was slightly taken aback. Immediately, I suddenly understood what Gu Yuan meant. It seems that this horrible game is not over yet. She was a little creepy. Like a frightened wild cat, it suddenly jumped up. He looked around in horror. In front of them, there were two doll rabbits, who stooped stiffly and picked up the toy guns on the ground. The muzzle of the black hole has quietly turned, pointing at the two of them respectively. This kind of toy gun seems to be made of plastic, and they are all extremely cheap and high quality. But now in the weird hands of two dolls, it seems to have an extremely terrifying deterrent force. Think with your toes. We'll understand. These two toy guns are definitely not ordinary objects, but cursed props. Moreover, it must be a very dangerous and vicious curse prop. The two rabbit dolls are smiling eerily, with funny and swollen fingers slightly bent, as if they are about to pull the trigger. Zhou Zixuan's hair stood on end. Goosebumps all over the body in an instant. An unprecedented horror of death enveloped her. At the same time, Gu Yuan sneered. This toy gun is very unusual. It can even bring him a premonition of danger. Never let them shoot. Gu Yuan directly raised his hand. The extremely rich scarlet blood flashed. Black Wukong's figure suddenly appeared. He grinned and let out a crazy laugh, and the skull stick swept out with a manic and violent breath. Before the two bunny figures could even press the trigger, their heads exploded. Among the shattered heads, there was no blood or brains. There are only balls of blackened cotton, and there is a musty smell surging. In this hoop game, what is really terrifying is the terrifying and strange power attached to the black bamboo hoop. The horror level of these dolls themselves is not high. Gu Yuan took a step forward and picked up the two toy guns. There are not many bullets in the gun. Each has only 5. No, one inferior toy gun. Grade, 5-star cursed props. Introduction. It's a crude thing. Be careful not to be hit by his bullets. He will devour your sorrow. No, 2 inferior toy gun. Grade, 5-star cursed props. Introduction. It is also a crude thing. His bullets can ignite your happiness. Both things are 5-star cursed Dao Xia. For the current Gu Yuan, it is also a good harvest. Moreover, what Gu Yuan cares about is even more. The role of these two toy guns. This may be the source of the previous sense of danger. Devour sorrow. Light up the joy. Very obscure and vague. It seems to be implying something. Gu Yuan had to pay attention to that. In his mission description this time, there were also words that ignite happiness. This is certainly no mere coincidence. Perhaps, this will be one of the important props for Gu Yuan to complete the mission. The so-called source of happiness hasn't been found yet, but the thing that can ignite happiness has arrived first. Reverse button. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. For a while, I didn't know whether to say I was unlucky or lucky. Until this time, Zhou Zixuan finally realized it. A pale and pretty face finally regained some blood color with difficulty. She understood that she just took another trip before the gate of hell. It's like jumping repeatedly in front of the eyelids of the god of death. She didn't know what it would be like to be hit by that ridiculous toy gun, but she can be sure of it. It will definitely not end well. This mysterious man saved her again. Thanks. Her voice was hoarse, and she almost collapsed. You're welcome. I didn't intend to save you. I just took a fancy to these two guns. Gu Yuan replied calmly. Immediately, he put away the two toy guns, without looking back, and walked out of this terrifying project area. The ring is over, and the cooperation between him and Zhou Zixuan is also over. It's time to go to other project areas and look for new clues. Zhou Zixuan stayed where she was, staring blankly at Gu Yuan's back. His face was a little red, and there was something else in his eyes. And a moment later, there was a bit of panic on her fair face. Wait, why can't I remember his face? How so? An inexplicable force forcibly erased the content of Gu Yuan's image in her memory. It's as if people at her level are not qualified to remember Gu Yuan's true face at all. She will always remember what happened today, and always remember that there is such a man. But more information about this man is missing from her. In front of her, the bloody screen of the horror game flickered. Lines of distorted text emerged, as if mocking. Put away your unnecessary fantasies. He is not a man you can touch. The distance between you and him is unimaginably large and immeasurable. The encounter between you and him today is like a god aloof, overlooking the world. He is a god, and you are at best an insignificant plant in his vision. After leaving the ring area, Gu Yuan fell into hesitation again. Although I got 2 inferior toy guns with extremely weird functions, they are suspected to be important props for completing the task. But the previous stalemate has not yet been resolved. The source of happiness has no clue. Gu Yuan doesn't have a clear goal right now. Just go to the bumper car project. Tong Wanyan's special ticket to an unknown place was obtained there. If I successfully complete the project, maybe I can get relevant information. He pondered for a while. Gu Yuan is to make a decision. He followed the signs on the road and went directly to the bumper car. The bumper car area at the moment, filled with an extremely strong smell of blood. The ground was already covered with dripping minced meat, and the scarlet blood flowed wantonly, dyeing the entire floor red. A human player with a distorted and ferocious face, with exposed veins and cold sweat. Under him is a bumper car. It's just that the bumper cars are already covered with black cracks like spider webs, and it seems to be a little overwhelmed. Hurry up. UF asterisk 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 G hurry up. He roared angrily, slapped the steering wheel fiercely, and almost crazily stepped on the accelerator of the bumper car under him, almost stomping on the gas pedal. Behind him, there are 7 or 8 other bumper cars. There are strange creatures sitting in the car. Their eyeballs seem to have been gouged out, and the remaining eye sockets have festered, and stinky pus is flowing out. Where there should be fingers, there are twisted tentacles, which are extremely evil. They made weird and absurd laughter, manipulated the bumper cars, and chased and hunted the human players in front of them. And on the periphery of the venue, there were a dozen other humans standing there. One of them counts as one, and all of them have extremely ugly faces. It can be said that the face is full of sorrow. The scalp is numb, like mourning. It's really difficult. How many people have died? This project is too crazy. Why did I randomly get the task of driving a bumper car? Can anyone really pass this level of difficulty? Everyone whispered. The eyes are full of despair. Human players who sent related tasks must complete the bumper car project. Otherwise, you will suffer an extremely terrifying and strange attack, and you will definitely die. Can you tell me about the rules? Gu Yuan stood on the edge of the arena and asked another man. From Tong Wanyan's memory, he only got the information of bumper car rewards, but did not see anything related to the bumper car project itself. He has no idea about the rules of the game here. Hu Tianchu didn't look back at all, just a wry smile. He subconsciously thought that Gu Yuan was also unlucky to have received a related task. Hey, the rules of this project are actually very simple. 2 human players, 8 weird creatures every time. Human players have to drive a bumper car, avoid the impact of other weird creatures, and persist for 10 minutes. Based on the results observed so far, a bumper car can withstand up to 5 hits. Once the upper limit is reached, he hadn't finished speaking. In the field, there was a bang. The bumper car driven by the strange creature has caught up with the human player. The 2 sides had a fierce collision. Then the bumper car under the human player collapsed and disintegrated in an instant, turning into countless fragments. The human player fell into the field, and his face immediately turned pale. The flesh and blood squirmed on the ground, and there were countless blue and black, terrifying ghost hands protruding from the flesh and blood, and the sharp nails pierced the human player's body fiercely. Then, the countless ghost hands pulled vigorously in unison. This human player was instantly torn apart by this terrifying strange power. His bones no deposit, become a part of the ground dripping bone and flesh. Hu Tianchu watched this scene. I couldn't help shivering fiercely. He whispered tremblingly. You see, when the upper limit is reached, the situation is like this, and the death will be very miserable and painful. He is already the longest sustained person I've seen, but he only survived for less than 3 minutes. Brother, don't blame me for not reminding you. Take advantage of this waiting time and think about your last words in advance. If you have a wife and children, call them now. This may be your last chance. Gu Yuan nodded thoughtfully. If we say that the key to surviving the previous ring game is to be aware of the loopholes in the rules. So now this bumper car game is not measuring wisdom and observation. It's pure driving skills. If Tong Wanyan can survive this project and get a reward, then at least he is a reserve of Qiu Mingshan rider. As for the others, it is basically life and death. He glanced at Hu Tianxiu. A thought suddenly crossed my mind. If both of them survive this bumper car game, could the project rewards those two people have something to do with the special tickets? He hesitated a little. Gu Yuan said directly in a deep voice. I see. Your answer is very helpful to me. I can give you a chance and we make a deal. Hu Tianxiu was slightly taken aback and glanced at Gu Yuan, feeling a little dazed. It's such a time. Life may be lost at any time. Who is in the mood to make a deal? If it were Lu Jiangluo and those 5 elders standing here. Now he will definitely urge Hu Tianxiu to agree quickly. This is Mr. Gu. There are not many people in the whole world who are qualified to do business with him. This bumper car project, I guarantee you will not die. In exchange, the project rewards you get belong to me. Gu Yuan spoke calmly. The voice was indifferent, without a trace of waves. It's like saying something trivial. Hearing this, Tian Su's eyes widened in shock. Some looked at Gu Yuan in disbelief. Keep him alive? Dare to make such a promise? You know, this kind of bumper car project is extremely dangerous, and the pass rate is ridiculously low. Go and die. But now Gu Yuan is not only not worried about his own survival at all. He even boasted directly to Haikao that he wanted to save his life. This is simply a fantasy. But in the dark, there is a strange feeling telling him. The man in front of him seemed very unusual. Perhaps. Really help? This ignited a glimmer of hope in his heart. He gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice, Brother, if you can really let me survive this, Zhao Li's test, then don't say it's a project reward for you. Even I can sell it to you myself. Time passed between minutes and seconds. Team after team of human players play. But don't say stick to 10 minutes to complete the project. There is no one who can survive more than 3 minutes. This is simply a field of death. Creak. The field gate opens. 2 pitch-black bumper cars suddenly appeared there. And those 8 weird creatures all stared at the rotten eye sockets, wriggling their ferocious tentacles, quietly waiting for the new prey to enter the arena. Brother, it's our turn. Hu Tianxiu hissed. His face was pale, his legs were weak, and his steps were trembling. Can't walk at all. Although I have been watching it for a long time, I'm mentally prepared. But when it was my turn, I still couldn't muster the courage. With calm eyes, Gu Yuan directly grabbed Hu Tianxiu's neck, flicked him, and threw him onto the bumper car. Gu Yuan got into another car. The field gate is closed. The flesh and blood on the ground began to squirm. An indescribable strange air permeated the air, infusing the whole place like a purgatory on earth. This scary bumper car project is about to start. Hum. The roar of the motor. The 8 strange creatures formed a fan formation, outflanking Gu Yuan and Gu Yuan from different directions. The position of the front of the car is stained with countless broken flesh and blood, which looks extremely cruel and fierce. Hu Tianxiu's hands trembled, and his eyes were full of panic. He held the steering wheel and looked at Gu Yuan. This man who threatened to keep him alive has now become his only straw. Brother, what shall we do? Which way to drive? I will follow you. Gu Yuan shook his head. No intention of driving at all. He said lightly, it's useless to drive in any direction, unless you are a racing master, otherwise you can't avoid it. Then what do you mean? Kill these weird creatures, no one will come to us. End of chapter. Chapter 69. What? Hu Tianxiu's eyes widened in shock. I can't believe my ears. He thought so. Gu Yuan's claim that he wants to save his life is outrageous enough. Unexpectedly, Gu Yuan is even worse now. They actually want to directly kill these 8 weird creatures driving bumper cars. Isn't this really crazy? Previously, there were human players who tried to activate the weird jigsaw puzzles to attack these weird creatures. The end is to be obliterated by the terrifying strange power in an instant. Dead clean. Not even the remains of flesh and blood were left. Brother, don't be joking. People will really die. Hu Tianxiu's face was pale, and he wanted to cry but had no tears. I said I want to save your life, and no one can kill you. Gu Yuan looked calm. There was an absolute majesty in the voice. Everything seems to be under control. He thought clearly. There are no tricks in this project. You must have excellent driving skills in order to avoid the hunting of those 8 strange creatures. Gu Yuan couldn't do this. Not long before the advent of the horror game, He had just passed his driver's license and was still a novice driver. It is very unwise to use your own shortcomings to fight. Just flip the table over. Gu Yuan gently raised his hand. He directly took out the inferior toy gun he just got, one in each hand. This toy gun is of extremely high grade and is a 5-star curse prop. It can even make Gu Yuan feel a strong sense of danger. This is enough to prove its horror. Now, Gu Yuan intends to use these weird creatures as targets to test the power of these two toy guns. Hu Tianxiu, who was at the side, watched Gu Yuan's movements. He couldn't help but widen his eyes full of surprise. The already messy mood has become more complicated. Weirdness is a very special kind of existence, fully immune to thermal weapons. Even real guns can't harm it. At first glance, this kind of thing looks extremely inferior and cheap, like a dilapidated toy gun made in a certain factory, and the bullets fired. Are they enough to tickle weird? Next moment, Gu Yuan gently pulled the trigger. The inferior number 1 toy gun exploded softly. However, what he shot was not a bullet in the conventional sense, but a gray tooth. It is not known what organism it is from, but one thing is for sure, it definitely does not belong to humans. This tooth tore through the air, and with a strong sense of eeriness and ominousness, it directly hit the face of a strange creature, instantly submerged into Wei Wei's body. No wounds were left. It's as if it just disappeared out of thin air. Next moment, the bumper car paused slightly. The 967 stagnated as if it had lost power, and the strange man who was driving was stuck there. The corners of his mouth drooped, showing an extremely sad expression. Drops of blood and tears, as black as ink, fell from his rotten eye sockets like strings of pearls. This is weird. Crying, and cry with sincerity. It was as if he had thought of something extremely sad, totally infected by that painful emotion that can't be extricated. For weird creatures that only rely on instinct in most cases, this is simply impossible. And this crying lasted only for a moment, immediately stagnated. The sadness is gone. In other words, sadness was swallowed by some unknown mysterious force. Then that strange creature didn't move anymore. He died silently. It's like ice melting in water. It can't stir up any waves. Hu Tianxiu saw it. Infinite horror burst out in the eyes. This is too scary. This way of dying is simply extremely weird. Cry and cry yourself to death? Gu Yuan also showed surprise. The horror of this inferior toy gun somewhat exceeded his expectations. Faintly, Gu Yuan seemed to understand the power represented by this gun. It touches on that extremely mysterious level of consciousness. The tooth that he shoots will evoke the purest and instinctive sadness in the heart of the living being. Even weird creatures are not immune. And this kind of sadness will gradually infect the consciousness of living beings until it merges with the consciousness. And then, that tooth eats up the sadness. Consciousness infected by sadness will be swallowed and wiped out. It is an incomparably terrifying method of killing. Is this a cursed item that can directly threaten consciousness? It's the same as the ancient book sent by the Horror Affairs Department before, and it's all directly related to that kind of thing from another dimension. This terrifying power is really fascinating. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. His gaze immediately turned to another inferior toy gun. It's almost the same as the previous one. The only difference is that a distorted handwriting is engraved on it, which says number 2. If the number 1 inferior toy gun, the power it represents is to devour the consciousness infected by sadness, then the effect of this number 2 inferior toy gun should be to ignite the part of the consciousness that is disturbed by happiness. Gu Yuan took a deep breath, raising the muzzle of the gun, aimed at another strange creature, facing this black hole of the muzzle. That strange creature also seemed to feel an inexplicable fear. He stepped on the brakes suddenly and came to an emergency stop. Some dare not rush forward. The trigger is pulled. Bullets fired. This time the bullet was a scarlet eyeball. There are no pupils. All the positions are eyeballs, densely covered with countless hideous bloodshot eyes. As before, the eyeball bullet did not cause any damage to the strange creature's body, but directly integrated into the strange creature's body. It seems to be affected by a mysterious force. The strange creature suddenly twitched. The corners of his mouth were raised. His eyebrows danced with joy. He danced his hands and feet stiffly and let out bursts of creepy laughter. It's just that there is a deep reluctance hidden in this laughter, as if it wasn't him who wanted to laugh. It's like being forced to laugh by some kind of terrifying force. So eerie and spooky. After laughing for a moment, Gu Yuan could see it. Inside this strange creature, a strange white flame burned. This kind of flame feels very weird to people. It seems to be very far away. It does not belong to this world at all, does not exist in this space, and is completely untouchable. But it seems to be very close, very real. Every detail is clearly visible. Illusion and reality, two contradictory feelings that are incompatible, appear at the same time at this moment. The body of the strange creature obviously did not suffer any visible burn damage, but he let out a roar of incomparable pain. It was as if he was undergoing some kind of incomparably brutal torture. Just for a moment, the strange creature slammed its head on the steering wheel, and there was no more movement. It seems that his consciousness has been turned into infinite fly ash under the burning of the terrifying flame. The current body is just an empty shell. Hu Tianxiu stared blankly, can't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. He turned his head cautiously and looked at Gu Yuan. His eyes were filled with indescribable awe. Until this time, only then did he clearly realize how terrifying the man in front of him was. Whether it's devouring sadness or igniting happiness, it's a strange attack on the level of consciousness. If there is no corresponding means of consciousness, no matter how strong the weirdness is, no matter how strong the trickster is, it is as fragile as a blank sheet of paper. Gu Yuan looked solemn and muttered to himself. He saw a whole new path. For a moment, there was a strong impulse in his heart. I must master this power. The next time the dark myth is fabricated, enter the people from this direction. Create a being that can enter the dimension of consciousness. After a brief moment of contemplation, Gu Yuan raised his head again. There was a sharp gleam in his eyes. Two toy guns were raised leisurely. It seems to be hesitating, which weird to choose as the next attack target. Next moment, those weird creatures unexpectedly slammed on the brakes and slammed the steering wheel at the same time. The tires of the bumper car frantically rubbed against the pieces of flesh and blood on the ground, causing a piercing explosion. Streams of blood spurted out from the minced meat, spreading into pieces in the air. Under the terrorist threat brought by Gu Yuan, these 6 strange creatures all chose to flee. They don't dare to hit Gu Yuan with their bumper cars anymore. They just want to stay away from this fierce god. Just stay away. Nest grass. Hu Tianxiu licked his dry lips. Can't help sighing. The scene in front of him was far beyond his imagination. The creepy creatures are scared away? CBCD. This is the first time such absurd phenomenon has occurred since the bumper car project was launched. What are you doing in a daze? Drive. Gu Yuan reminded me softly, unhurriedly stepping on the accelerator. He chased after the strange creature in front of him. Hu Tianxiu woke up like a dream. There was also a look of excitement on his face. Stimulate. It's so exciting. He never imagined that there would be such a day in his life that he could chase and kill these terrifying and strange creatures like beating a dog in the water. Then, a very funny and paradoxical scene appeared in this bumper car venue full of blood and blood. 6 strange creatures with rotten eye sockets and hideous expressions screamed fearfully while stepping on the gas pedal crazily regardless of the cost. The 2 humans, on the other hand, chased after them slowly, like a shepherd driving his flock. Of course, pursuit is pursuit. Gu Yuan did not continue to shoot. His goal is to pass the bumper car project smoothly, not necessarily to drive out all these weirdnesses. Now that these weirdnesses have been deterred, they won't hit the bumper car under him again. Then naturally there is no need to kill him. These 2 low-quality toy guns don't have many bullets, and now there are only 4 bullets left each. Cannot be squandered. Soon, in this ridiculous chase, 10 minutes is up. Jingle bell. A sharp sound sounded. Originally closed, the field gate opened again. Those 6 strange creatures all huddled at the edge of the field, watching Gu Yuan from afar. The strange expression on his face clearly conveyed the same meaning. It's already time. Why don't you leave? Boss, we survived. We can go out. Hu Tianxiu spoke excitedly. Gu Yuan didn't have the slightest intention to go out. He had an indifferent smile on his face. His cold eyes swept over the remaining 6 strange creatures. In his hand, the special ticket to an unknown place fluttered in the wind. Remember, the reward for completing the project, I want the best and most precious things from you. It would be the best if it has something to do with this ticket. If you don't satisfy me, I will come again next time. Gu Yuan spoke slowly and authentically. He didn't know if this threat was useful. This is a costless attempt. It's best if it's useful, and it doesn't affect anything if it's useless. Those 6 strange creatures have a certain amount of wisdom, so they should be able to understand what he meant. Hu Tianxiu watched from the side. The look of awe in his eyes is even stronger. If other human players can successfully complete the project, they must run away immediately. Who would like to stay in such a gloomy and weird place for an extra hour and a half? But this boss is actually threatening Wei Wei, asking for the best project reward. Come again next time. Hu Tianqiu clearly saw that when these 4 words sounded, those strange creatures shivered fiercely. On the ground, the pieces of flesh and blood squirmed strangely. Countless bloody hands stick out. The 2 bloody hands in the middle are holding 2 things that linger with a cold atmosphere. Then many blood hands sent these 2 things to Gu Yuan and Hu Tianqiu in an orderly manner by beating drums to pass flowers. Obviously, this is the reward for passing the project. Gu Yuan glanced at it. I couldn't help but my heart skipped a beat. The first thing is an old photo that is turned yellow. In the photo is a very old green leather train. The car body is covered with mottled rust, and the lights are dim and yellowish, shaking slightly, filled with a sense of strangeness. And in one of the window positions, there was a woman holding her cheeks and looking out the window boredly. Even though the photos are very blurry, there has been a lot of wear and tear. But it can still be seen that this is a very perfect and delicate woman. She was wearing a luxurious cheongsam and an emerald bracelet. Her facial features couldn't be faulted in the slightest, as if all the beauty in the world were gathered here. On the back of the photo, write a line of "No Crooked Minister." Photographed at Chongqing Station. If anyone is lucky enough to meet this beautiful lady in the future, please send my regards to her. She is very gentle and kind, and will help you solve your troubles. The bloody screen of the horror game also emerged. An old photo. Grade. Special item. No grade. Introduction. The ancient photos seemed to hide some unknown secret. Gu Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. There was an incomparably sharp gleam in his eyes. Changxiang Station? This is where that special ticket boards. The green leather train in the photo should be the tricky train that will appear on the 9th night. What is the identity of the woman in the photo? What is the relationship with the treacherous train? If I board the treacherous train, will I also meet this woman? Will she solve my troubles? Gu Yuan muttered to himself. There is no doubt that this old photo must be closely related to the special ticket, but Gu Yuan can't decipher the secret hidden in it yet. He pressed the doubts in his heart. His eyes turned to another reward from the bumper car area. It was a damaged front, covered with broken flesh and blood, and filled with a strange smell of burning. It looks like it just came off these bumper bodies. Break into people. Grade. 5-star weird puzzle. Introduction. This is a strange power. It can even take out the weird puzzles in your body. Gu Yuan frowned. There was a playful look in his eyes. It seemed that his casual threat had indeed taken effect. The project rewards given in this bumper car area are definitely the most precious and generous ones. Not to mention the old photos. It has something to do with that treacherous train, involving a mysterious woman. When necessary, it can also be used as a bargaining chip in exchange for the help of that mysterious woman. The value cannot be measured at all. And this violent jigsaw puzzle is not an ordinary 5-star weird jigsaw puzzle. Apparently, it was a weird force that belonged to the bumper car area. Under the pressure of Gu Yuan, the bumper car area split a part of the weirdness and sent it out. This is obviously to calm down the matter and send the plague god to the flesh. Let Gu Yuan never play bumper cars again. End of chapter. Chapter 70. I took both of these things. Gu Yuan spoke calmly. Hu Tianqiu on the side didn't have the slightest objection and nodded respectfully. This is a deal that has already been made. Gu Yuan saved his life, and the rewards given by the bumper car project belong to Gu Yuan. Although this 5-star jigsaw puzzle looks extremely powerful and terrifying, it's heartwarming. But Hu Tianqiu has self-knowledge. He is lucky to survive. How dare he covet other things? The two got up and left. And at the moment when they just walked out of the field, bang, the venue gate is closed. A yellow notice board suddenly appeared in front of the door. A line of distorted text was written on it. This project is suspended. It was as if I was afraid that Gu Yuan would be dissatisfied, so I really did it again. Hu Tianqiu was even more shocked when he saw it in his eyes. An incomparably horrific amusement project was forced to close down by Gu Yuan, if not personally experienced. So who can believe such a thing? Thanks to the boss this time. Boss, my family lives in Haicheng. If you have any orders in the future, please let me know, and I will definitely die. Hu Tianqiu took a deep breath. He spoke with great sincerity and humility. Gu Yuan looked indifferently. It's just a deal. By the way, I heard that there are wandering clowns in this amusement park. Have you ever seen it? Entering the amusement park this time, Gu Yuan has 3 goals. The first is to explore the bumper car project, and see if you can extract information related to that special ticket. This goal has been accomplished. And the second is to complete the task and find the so-called source of happiness, which is temporarily rich without a clue. The third is to find the smiling clown and see if the damaged toy castle can be repaired. Hearing this, Hu Tianxiu was slightly taken aback. Clown? It seems to have a little impression. He thought about it for a moment. Then raise your finger to point in one direction. Boss, I just came over from there. Because I was in a hurry to find the bumper car area to complete the task, I didn't pay much attention to the things around me. In my impression, it should be at the entrance of the Rapid Rapids project. There seems to be a clown selling balloons there. I don't know if it's the one you're looking for. Yuan nodded. Immediately, without hesitation, he took big strides and headed towards the direction of the torrent. Perhaps it is because the vast majority of human players have already lost their lives in various amusement projects. Compared with the beginning, the amusement park at this moment is obviously much quieter. Along the way, Yuan didn't see a single person. Only the trees on both sides of the road, under the illumination of the red moon, twisted into shadows like ghosts. In the unknown dark area, there seems to be some invisible weirdness and ominousness flowing. Soon, Yuan followed the road and came to the rapid current Yongjin project area. The water flow here is completely composed of blood. Between the surging and turbulent waves, there was a terrifying and gloomy chill. And at the gate of the project, a tall clown, about 2 meters tall, stood there quietly. He had extremely exaggerated makeup painted on his face, and the corners of his mouth were split in an astonishing manner, almost spreading to the base of his ears, outlining a terrifying smile. In his hand, he holds the balloon that Hu Tianxiu mentioned. But if you look carefully, you will find that where is the balloon? Obviously one after another, head. These people have male and female heads, old and young, and they are all different. The only thing that is the same is that all the heads have the same expression as the clown, full of exaggerated smiles. Occasionally blood would drip from a human head, splash on the Joker, and dry up in a dark spot on his comical costume. Everything looks so spooky and weird. It seems to have noticed something. The smiling clown suddenly turned his head and looked at Yuan. A light of unknown meaning flickered in the huge eyes, and the smile on his face became more and more strange. Immediately afterwards, he took big strides and walked towards Yuan. Yuan stood there calmly, like a statue. Judging from the information obtained from Tong Wanyan's memory, the smiling clown is very friendly to human players and will not actively attack players. The crying clown is the real danger. Oh, look who I met. A valued guest who comes to the amusement park looking for real happiness. Come, distinguished guest, please laugh. In this heavenly place, everyone will be happy and redeemed. The smiling clown spoke happily. Looks very enthusiastic. The voice was hoarse and unpleasant, like a male duck talking. Yuan smiled cooperatively. Now it's right. My dear guest, you are so elegant and handsome. May happiness be with you everywhere. The smiling clown hissed, looking back at his blessing. Just don't know why. Obviously a blessing. It sounds a bit creepy, like the most vicious curse. Yuan remained calm and said softly, I heard that you can buy some amusement park gifts here? Certainly. These things are all prepared for you. You can pick whatever you want. The price is clearly marked, and the old are not deceived. As he spoke, the smiling clown pulled down the human head balloon in his hand and sent it forward to Yuan. These people's heads were bloody, and their eyes were all wide open, and there was residual panic in their eyes. It seemed that before death, he had endured a great fear. This kind of unrepentant eyes, paired with the smiles on their faces, looks extremely inconsistent, and there is a kind of coldness rushing towards their faces. Impotent panic. The smiley clown blows a whistle. The heads of these people all open their mouths and spit out their scarlet tongues. On the tongue, a series of distorted small characters are engraved impressively. It is a brief description of the item and the specific price. The toy bracelet that has been kissed by the wicked. The 3-star curse props. Only 8,000 treacherous notes. Strange teddy bear. 5-star curse props. Only 60,000 tricky notes. Twisted toy music box. 4-star curse props. Only 20,000 yuan. Yuan was slightly taken aback. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes. Therefore, these human head balloons are not real balloons. The human head is just an appearance. It's like the outer packaging of the express delivery. The real weird things are all hidden in these weird heads. I don't know if there is any deep meaning in this arrangement, or it's just a joke of the smiling clown. And then again, There are really many good things in the hands of this smiling clown. There are a total of 5-star curse props alone. Black Wukong's level of horror is already at the peak of the 5-star top. It is only a little bit away from the 6-star junior. With the injection of this wave of resources, it is absolutely possible to go a step further and step into the 6-star level. Of course, corresponding to the level is its high price. A 5-star curse item needs to be exchanged for a full 60,000 tricks. 5 pieces added up, that's a total of 300,000 fraudulent banknotes. In today's world of tricksters, it can definitely be regarded as a terrifyingly huge sum of money. If it was before, Yuan really couldn't afford it. But after making a deal with the Horror Affairs Department, he is now sitting on a net worth of millions, which can be said to be multi-billion. It is completely possible to let the smiling clown feel the shock of money. I want all of these. Yuan pointed to those 5-star props. Perhaps it was because Yuan was too bold and decisive. The smiling clown just froze there. He has never seen a guest like Yuan. 300,000 fraudulent banknotes. That is not a small amount. After a moment of hesitation, he smiled a little stiffly. This honored guest does not accept credit for small businesses. Pay with one hand and deliver with one hand. Yuan raised his hand without hesitation. A total of 300,000 white paper money was neatly stacked in front of the smiling clown. The smiling clown stared blankly, a little dazed. He was stunned by this huge amount of fraudulent banknotes. Immediately afterwards, the exaggerated smile on his face became more intense. It even has a flattering and pleasing taste. It was as if he was afraid that Yuan would repent. He hastily raised his hand and stuffed the 5 head balloons carrying 5-star curse props into Yuan's hands. Dear guest, the transaction has been concluded, and I sincerely wish you a happy life and a lot of laughter. Yuan looked calm. He flipped his hands over and took out the toy castle. After exerting the power of terror, successively transforming the avatar of the evil god and the bronze bell of King Fengwen, the toy castle itself has also suffered a huge backlash. A large number of toy soldiers inside were damaged, and there were many dense cracks on the surface. It seems to be a little overwhelmed. If it is used to transform a high-level existence like the avatar of the evil god, it is estimated that it will completely collapse after only one time. I have a friend who bought this toy castle from you before, but now the toy castle is showing some damage. I want to know whether you care about after-sales here. Can it be repaired? Yuan spoke softly. He directly referred to Tong Wanyan as his friend. Anyway, the dead can't jump out to defend themselves. The smiling clown grinned and let out an ugly laugh. Dear guest, you are joking. This is Haiching Amusement Park, the happiest place in the world. In order to make you happy, within the scope of my ability, I will meet all your requirements, which is my duty. As long as you can afford it. It is much harder to restore an old thing than to create a new one. Fair price, 100,000 fraudulent bills. Yuan frowned. There was a playful look in his eyes. It's true that money can turn ghosts around, but this kind of request is nothing to him. It's just tricks. He has money now. Before he nodded, the smiling clown added in a low voice. If you are a distinguished guest, you are willing to pay an additional 200,000 yuan on top of the 100,000 yuan asking for flowers, I can give you a special additional service. Yuan raised his eyebrows. The smiling clown said with a grin, upgrade service. I will modify your toy castle a little bit, and it will become a 6-star cursed prop. Yuan narrowed his eyes suddenly. There is an incomparably sharp light flashing away. This smiling clown really brought him a huge surprise. This trip to Haiching Amusement Park is the right time. The smiley clown can do more than just restore toy castles. You can even go one step further. Raise the horror level of the toy castle to 6 stars. The gap between these is incomparably huge. The 6-star toy castle, with its transforming power, will definitely be even more terrifying. Perhaps the time for the toy soldiers to form a mysterious formation will be shortened accordingly. For a long time to come, this is Yuan's powerful whole card. The price of only 200,000 fraudulent banknotes is simply too cost-effective. At the moment, he nodded without hesitation. BT. Another 300,000 white paper money flew out. It fell neatly on the ground, almost drowning the smiling clown. Once the money is in place, the smiling clown got to work right away. He raised his hand directly, pulling those human head balloons in front of him. He plucked out the eyeballs very roughly, then give it a hard pinch. Puff. These eyeballs burst directly. A strange and unspeakable black juice gushed out. There is a disgusting stench, and this stench, in the eyes of the smiling clown, is incomparably delicious. He took a deep breath, a little intoxicated. Then the black juice was removed and wiped on the toy castle. The cracks on the castle began to heal immediately at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, it did not recover as before, but left behind mottled marks. It's like the scars of human beings after they have been injured and recovered. It looks so hideous and weird. Dear guest, don't be impatient. The repair has been completed. The next thing to do is to upgrade. The smiling clown spoke in a low voice. Then he roughly opened the castle tower door. Pull out the princess doll. He stretched out a finger, dipped a little of the juice squeezed out from his eyeballs, and gently hooked the princess doll's mouth. The corner of the mouth of the princess doll was pulled down strangely, formed a horizontal S shape. Yuan stood by and watched. I couldn't help but my heart skipped a beat. A sharp light flashed across his eyes. This scene, déjà vu. At the entrance of Haicheng Amusement Park, there is a sculpture of a princess. The same weird expression. The corners of the mouth are raised and drooped at the same time. It's like half of your face is crying and half of your face is smiling. Evil to the extreme. This is a coincidence? Or is it implying something? Faintly, Yuan felt as if he had grasped something, but I couldn't figure it out for a while. Ahead, the smiling clown has stuffed the transformed princess doll back into the tower. A new bloody screen appeared in front of Yuan. The above text is completely different from before. Strange Toy Castle. Grade. 6-star Cursed Props. Introduction. After going through some kind of evil and mysterious ritual, this toy castle has achieved a terrifying leap. You have to use it carefully. Be careful that you will become a doll in the castle one day. Dear guest, here is what you want. Have fun here. The smiling clown delivered the toy castle to Yuan. Taking a step back, putting one hand on his chest, he bowed towards Yuan, immediately loaded up the deceitful banknotes, and prepared to leave. Yuan looked at the brand new toy castle. Count silently. The old photos related to the special ticket were found, and the toy castle was restored and upgraded. Now there is only the so-called source of happiness, and I don't have a clue. Perhaps I can. Yuan's eyes froze, and a flash of inspiration flashed in his heart. Shouted at the smiling clown. Wait a moment. The smiling clown stopped and did not move. Only the head was twisted at a strange 360-degree angle. Dear guest, what else do you need? Yuan pondered for a while, then asked with serious eyes. Did you just say that as long as you can afford the price, as long as it is within your ability, you will meet any of my requirements? Yes, honored guest. Then, I now hope that you can help me find the source of happiness hidden in this Haicheng Amusement Park. Yuan spoke softly. It's a try. After all, Yuan has no clue about the whereabouts of the source of happiness. And the smiling clown is an aboriginal of Haicheng Amusement Park, obviously related to the deepest secret of the amusement park. Starting from him, maybe we can open a breakthrough mountain. End of chapter. Chapter 71. Hear Yuan's request. The smiling clown was slightly taken aback. Immediately afterwards, the smile on his face shrank a little. There is no previous enthusiasm in the tone. Instead, it carried a bit of indescribable coldness. It was as if Yuan's request touched some kind of special taboo. The strange air around it flows in a strange trajectory, exuding a strong chill. Dear guest, are you sure you really want the source of happiness? His voice was low and cold, like the whisper of an evil ghost. Yuan nodded. According to the previous trading rules, the so-called price is nothing more than fraudulent money. Before that, he got nearly 1.4 million fraudulent banknotes from the Department of Horror Affairs. Even if the cost of just 600,000 is discarded, there is still 800,000. No matter how expensive this so-called source of happiness is, it should be affordable. If it doesn't work, it's okay to buy information. It's better than fumbling around like a headless chicken like him. I'm sure I really need a source of joy. You make an offer. For free. The smiling clown shook his head. For free. Yuan was slightly taken aback. Then a serious look suddenly flashed in his eyes. Behind him, 3 figures suddenly appeared. A terrifying black robe, with 2 flaming will-o'-the-wisps in the hood, and twisted tentacles under the body, flowing with foul-smelling slime. A tall and burly monster with 9 blood-red eyes seems to be able to see through all the hypocrisy and evil in the world. A hunched, bare-chested figure, dragging a big stick engraved with skulls, stood there coldly. Evil impermanence, evil Yama, and black Wukong. The three myths are weird, and they are all ready for battle. Weird creatures are not philanthropists. To trade with them, there must be a price to pay. If you don't want money, then 9:30. It may be fatal. Yuan had to be extremely cautious. Ahead, the smiling clown raised his head and looked at the deep night sky. In the huge eyes, there is an extremely violent and strange light. Everyone who comes to Haicheng Amusement Park comes to find happiness. This is the happiest place in the world. And the meaning of my existence is to bring happiness to everyone. Any tourist is entitled to explore the source of happiness. If you make a request, then I can only agree. I have no reason to refuse, even if I will be destroyed. He muttered to himself almost crazily. It's like a person who has gone insane, talking nonsense aimlessly. And these words are full of an extremely ominous. Immediately afterwards, he raised his hand suddenly, holding his face. The sharp nails pierced fiercely into his skin. It was a sudden and violent pull. Chill. The face that was smeared with extremely exaggerated makeup and laughed wantonly was torn off abruptly. Where the skin is lost, it showed a strange scarlet color. In the flesh and blood, there are countless things like parasites moving south. Those parasites protruded from the flesh, densely packed, writhing chaotically and irregularly. It looks creepy and the hairs stand on end. Dear guest, this is the source of happiness you want. Smiley Clown, no, it can't be called Smiley Clown anymore. The current he is a faceless existence. He held up the bloody face. A dull and fierce voice came from the bloody black hole that didn't look like a mouth at all. Yuan couldn't help being shocked. This scene was beyond his expectation. He hadn't thought of it at all. The so-called source of happiness. It turned out to be the face of a smiling clown, although it was torn off abruptly. But this face still maintains a fairly high degree of integrity. Especially that exaggerated smile is still clearly visible. The source of happiness. Grade. 6-star weird puzzle. Introduction. Wearing this face, you will become a new smiling clown, spreading true happiness to all living beings in the world. Click it. Faceless and strange. He threw away the face of the source of happiness at will. Then the frenzied whispering started again. The ominous and weird whispers echoed throughout the amusement park, echoing like 100 ghosts crying at night. I give you happiness. I'm not happy anymore. I'm just sad now. I want to cry. I really want to cry. On his face, some of the twisted parasites sticking out their heads suddenly exploded, oozing yellow liquid. In an instant, the liquid completely covers the entire face. Then a new face is generated. It's hard to describe what kind of face this is. His face was wrinkled and wrinkled, like an apple that had been stored for a long time, and there was an indescribable sadness. In the huge eyes, full of deep sadness, drops of scarlet blood and tears flowed out from the eyes, drawing two long and narrow bloodstains on the face. This moment, crying clown, the ultimate terrifying aura emanates and diffuses, as if it wants to pull everything around it into the abyss. Yuan was shocked. So this is the source of the crying clown. He was transformed from a smiling clown. Or more precisely, the crying face and the smiling face are actually two different states of this strange body. And Yuan asked for the source of happiness. A certain balance in this body was broken. The smiley face was completely abandoned. The crying face is completely in control of the body. And this scene instantly solved all the doubts in Yuan's mind. He finally understood. Why the princess statue at the entrance of the amusement park before? There are also princess dolls in the toy castle. It's all the weird look with one corner of the mouth raised and the other drooping. And the toy guns obtained from the hoop game also happen to be too. Because this is the balance that exists everywhere in Haicheng Amusement Park. Crying and laughing are one. Happiness and sadness go hand in hand. Woo 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 woo. The crying clown turned his head and looked at Yuan. Let out a hoarse, creepy cry. Yuan immediately felt an extremely strong sense of crisis. The crying clown in front of him was more dangerous than he expected. In terms of horror, it is already a 6-star advanced level, even close to a 6-star top level. It is even more terrifying than the clone of the evil god in King Fengwen before. He didn't dare to hesitate any longer. Raise your hand directly. With a flick, the 3 mythical statues were weird, and immediately launched strange attacks on the crying clown from 3 different directions. Phantoms of hell towered, and pure darkness spread. The sea of blood is boiling, the waves are tense, and the killing intent is permeating the sky. This is the ghost of Nie Yan Luo and Black Wukong. But the crying face clown is around. There was always that strange crying echoing back and forth. There is a strange and unpredictable power in the cry. Whether it is the Hell Ghost or the Blood Sea Ghost, they are all suppressed by this weird cry, and they cannot pose a threat to the crying clown at all. Only the water from the yellow spring, when colliding with crying. Streams of foul-smelling slime shot out from the spring water. This is the special change produced by the power of evil impermanence itself, after it is fused with the power of the evil god. It has the horror characteristics of both at the same time. It not only has the dead energy of Huangquan itself, but also has the pollution power from the evil god. Coupled with the terrifying level of evil and impermanence, it has reached a 6-star elementary level. So this yellow spring water directly drowned out all the cries and rushed to the crying clown in an unstoppable gesture that penetrated everything. The ecstasy chains hidden in the yellow spring water shot straight up, entangled the crying clown, and forced the crying clown to sink into the water. Can it be solved? Gu Yuan's eyes were serious, but then shook his head. He is sensible. Evil impermanence is now very powerful, but there is a huge gap between the level of horror and the crying clown. It is very difficult to bridge this gap. There is a high probability to mobilize other whole cards. Really, as Gu Yuan expected, even if it is dragged by the ecstasy chain, yellow spring water can only submerge up to the neck of the crying clown at most, and there is no way to completely submerge him. His terrifying crying face was still exposed outside. With the tear falling, the shackles of the yellow spring water on him are also constantly shrinking. His body began to slowly surface. We can't let him break free so easily. Gu Yuan's eyes were fixed. Immediately, without hesitation, he rang the bronze bell in his hand. Boom! The thick and mysterious bells, carrying some kind of mysterious power related to time, spread slowly. The crying clown froze immediately. He was suppressed by the sound of the bell. Immediately afterwards, the chaotic atmosphere around Gu Yuan thickened in the blink of an eye. The dark hell, the sea of boiling blood, and the terrifying Huangquan on the side merged with the energy of chaos in the first place. 4 layers of dark mythical ghosts are formed. Even the previous clone of the evil god retreated in front of the quadruple dark mythical ghosts. And at this moment, the crying clown was shocked. That miserable face looked at Gu Yuan through the deep ghost. I'm in so much pain. I'm so sad. Are you in pain? Are you sad? Why don't you suffer? Why don't you feel sad? Crazy whispers, like the deepest curse. In the dark, there was an incomparably weird and mysterious force, ignoring the obstruction of ghosts and creatures, and added to Gu Yuan's body. This is an attack on the dimension of consciousness. Belongs to another level. It has been separated from the real world and exists. It seems to have come through the 4 layers of dark mythological ghosts. But in fact, there is no direct contact or collision with the ghost creature at all. This aspect is Gu Yuan's biggest shortcoming so far. Oops. Gu Yuan felt chills all over his body. Then he felt a deep sadness. Living seems to have nothing significance. The corners of his mouth drooped unconsciously, and the expression on his face was getting closer and closer to that kind of extreme sorrow. Not just him. Similar influences are also exerted on evil impermanence, Nie Yan Luo and Black Wukong. 1 person and 3 tricks. There are unknown forces gathering in the eye sockets. It seems that tears are about to flow. Cannot be like this. Gu Yuan gritted his teeth slightly. He didn't know what it would be like to cry, but instinct told him. Once this tear really brews and forms, something very dire may happen. Perhaps it is possible to directly obliterate his consciousness. Gu Yuan frowned, trying to suppress the sadness, and quickly thought of a way. A light flashed in his mind. Came up with a somewhat crazy strategy. With a light flick of the wrist, a poor quality toy gun appeared in his hand. This is the number 1 toy gun. The bullets fired eat sorrow. That's the only way to try. If the situation continues to deteriorate, I can only activate that thing to save my life, or use that dilapidated ancient book to forcibly pull the consciousness of the crying clown into the mysterious book world and solve him there. That's a last resort, Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Immediately afterwards, he held up the inferior toy gun. Didn't aim at the crying clown. Tox. Aimed at Gu Yuan himself. He thought very clearly. The horror level of the crying clown is at the 6-star level, and the number 1 inferior toy gun is just a 5-star cursed prop. When it comes to the uncanny power of sadness, a bad toy gun is no match for the crying clown. Even if you run out of bullets, it shouldn't be able to pose a substantial threat to it. Align yourself. If the expected situation holds true, then Gu Yuan will be able to get rid of death threats completely. Boom. There was a soft sound. A gray tooth bullet, tearing through the air, entered Gu Yuan's body. Gu Yuan looked serious. Concentrate on feeling the changes in your emotions. In the other hand, he was already holding a ridiculous puppet doll. Gift from the Department of Horror Affairs. 4-star cursed props, dead puppets. If there are signs of losing control of his emotions, he will urge this surrogate puppet to bear the attack of erasing consciousness instead of himself. Gray teeth, melted in Gu Yuan's body, turned into a cloud of illusory gray mist. Originally, at this time, he will arouse the sadness in Gu Yuan's body, infect Gu Yuan's consciousness, and then use the opportunity of devouring sadness to erase Gu Yuan's consciousness. However, now Gu Yuan is suffering from a weird attack from a crying clown. The concentration of this sadness is too high. Therefore, the gray mist skipped the step of inducing it and started devouring it directly. The power of the crying face, fighting against the gray mist, killing each other. Gradually, a new weird balance is formed. This balance is a combination of two strange forces. They covered Gu Yuan's consciousness, became a protective cloak for Gu Yuan's consciousness. The strange attack involving the 5.7 level of consciousness must first break through this layer of coat before it can cause damage to Gu Yuan's consciousness. It looks like I bet, right? These two sad forces from different sources will instinctively start to fight. The bullets from the toy gun may not be able to threaten the crying face clown's body, but it is still no problem to deal with the strange power released by the baby-faced clown. Now, with the protection of this balance of consciousness, the threat of the crying clown to me has dropped significantly. Gu Yuan smiled slightly and breathed a sigh of relief. This time, the god of luck is still on his side. He turned his gun. He also fired a shot at Nie Yan Luo, Hey Wukong, and evil impermanence. Help them fight against the creepy powers of the crying clown. At this point, all the bullets are empty. This number 1 inferior toy gun is completely broken. Next, it's time to clean you up. Gu Yuan looked indifferently at the terrifying crying clown in the distance. Through the dangerous and daring experiment just now, he has a guess on how to deal with the crying clown. Matters at the level of consciousness must be resolved with consciousness. The number 2 inferior toy gun appeared in the hands of Gu Yuan. The weirdness of the number 1 toy gun belongs to the same category as the crying clown, and it is difficult to cause substantial damage to him. But number 2 is different. The power of this gun is the exact opposite of that of number 1. It is the strange force that ignites happiness. Woo 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 woo. After seeing this gun, the crying clown became visibly agitated. He struggled frantically, trying to break through the shackles of dark myths and ghosts. This made Gu Yuan more sure of his guess. Happiness and sadness are the positive and negative sides of things, and they are also the conscious forces that generate and restrain each other. If I'm not mistaken, the bullets of this gun will serve as a medium to break the balance in the crying clown's body and let him die in the conflict between the two emotional consciousnesses. End of chapter. Chapter 72. Gu Yuan pulled the trigger without hesitation. The plastic barrel vibrates. Boom, boom, boom. There were 3 consecutive muffled gunshots. 3 scarlet eyeball bullets shot out. Only the last bullet remained. This bullet, Gu Yuan wanted to keep it as a spare, because there was a detail mentioned in the previous mission description. Ignite happiness, you will get it all. Gu Yuan paid more attention to this sentence. Perhaps behind the source of happiness, there is still some kind of unknown secret, which needs to be ignited to get it. And this toy gun is currently the only way Gu Yuan has mastered that can ignite happiness. Ahead, in the eyes of the crying clown, there was already a bit of human fear. He struggled frantically, writhing desperately, want to avoid the attack of bullets. But now he is already under the coverage of 4 layers of dark mythical ghosts. Although his terror is extremely high, the 4 layers of dark mythical ghosts are hard to erase in a short time. However, it is still very easy to limit the range of its physical activities and ensure that the bullet hits. Puff. The bloody eyeball bullets silently sank into the crying clown's body. His struggling stopped instantly. This 5-star curse item is not enough to kill him directly. This is just an introduction. An introduction that induces the crying clown's homeostasis out of control. Some kind of incomprehensible and terrifying changes began to quietly occur in his body. The first thing to change was the expression on his face. The originally drooping corners of the distressed mouth were raised in an extremely exaggerated arc. It's like suddenly remembering something very happy. A strange hoarse laughter followed. Ha 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 ha. But the next moment, the corners of his mouth drooped again, and he began to make that creepy cry. This back and forth change is extremely frequent and extremely violent. Laugh out loud now and then. Sometimes weep bitterly. Two different emotions, with the consciousness of the crying clown as the battlefield, are engaged in some kind of extremely terrifying and thrilling confrontation. Even the crying clown itself is a weird one with the ability to directly interfere with consciousness. At this moment, I feel a little helpless about my own situation. After a long time, this confrontation seems to have reached an extreme level. The body of the crying clown jerked violently. No more crying, no more laughing. The expression on his face changed to 21's pure sluggishness and bewilderment. Then I couldn't hold it anymore. Strangely fell to the ground. All the breath of life vanished into thin air. This extremely terrifying weirdo is dead. Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. The originally tense mind finally relaxed. It is no exaggeration to say that this crying clown is the scariest existence Yuan has ever encountered. This short moment of confrontation is really too dangerous. The confrontation in the whole field is like walking on thin ice, with traps everywhere, killing every step, and you can't make a mistake in a single step. The use of 2 inferior toy guns is even more subtle. The bullet of the number 1 inferior toy gun must be shot at yourself, devouring sorrow, so as not to be directly killed by the crying clown. The bullet of the number 2 inferior toy gun must hit the clown, causing the balance to lose control. If there is a slight deviation in the middle, it will definitely not be the current result. He turned his head and looked at the face that the clown threw on the ground before. Distorted and weird, with a ferocious and swollen smile. Vaguely, it seemed that there was a sinister laughter echoing around. This is the so-called source of happiness. Yuan stepped forward and bent over to pick it up. Even if it's just a superficial touch, Yuan could feel an inexplicable joy. The corners of his mouth raised uncontrollably. The power that affects the dimension of consciousness is really terrifying. Yuan sighed sincerely. At the same time, the extremely weird bloody screen of the horror game flashed out. You have successfully found the source of happiness hidden in the amusement park. Mission completed. Start settlement mission rewards. You got a 5-star weird puzzle. Kneel and catch people. You got a 5-star cursed item. A bloody Ferris wheel fragment. You got a 5-star weird puzzle. Jump off a building. You got a 5-star weird puzzle. So sad. You have obtained a 5-star weird puzzle. A fierce leap. Corresponding to the extremely dangerous mission process. It is the rich reward after completing the task. A total of 5 5-star weird things. Each piece was filled with an extremely strong cold aura. However, there is no such special purpose. These 5 5-star weird things can all be used to feed mythical monsters, in addition to the 5 gifts I bought from the smiling clown earlier. And the sneaky bumper you got after completing the bumper car project. This is a total of 11 5-star weird items. With such a huge amount of resources, this time, the horror level of Black Wukong and Nie Yan Luo should be raised. Yuan muttered to himself. 11 5-star things. With such a thickness of resources, even the veterans of the Horror Affairs Department would be envious after seeing it. Immediately, Yuan gently raised his hand. 11 strange things, classified according to different characteristics, were sent to Nie Yan Luo and Black Wukong. May my lord live forever. It is our greatest honor to fight for our lord. Nie Yan Luo and He Wukong, the 2 mysterious myths, bowed their heads respectfully. Like a believer who has received the gift of the gods, he gave a lofty praise. Yuan smiled and nodded. Nie Yan Luo and He Wukong didn't hesitate anymore. The phagocytosis and absorption started immediately. With the support of this wave of huge resources, the horror level of the 2 of them increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. The cold and strange atmosphere around them also cheered and danced around the 2 of them. Both of them have been promoted to the 6-star primary level. So far, the 3 myths under Yuan's hands are strange. All have entered the 6-star. This is already an extremely terrifying level. If the 3 of them act recklessly, they can easily overturn a city and kill millions of humans in an instant. This also means that Yuan's overall comprehensive terror has increased by a huge margin. Yuan nodded in satisfaction, then suddenly realized a problem. Wait, after the death of this crying clown, there doesn't seem to be any new weird puzzles. Did I ignore it? Still, his consciousness was wiped out in the emotional collision. But his body remained active, not completely dead. In this extremely weird state, won't the weird puzzle it belongs to appear? He was guessing. Stand up on one side. Quickly come to the dead body of the crying face clown. The crying clown lay quietly on the ground. The eyes are dull and empty, without the slightest expression. The blood and tears that flowed out had dried up on his face, turning into weird stains. An indescribably sad breath lingered around him. It seems that everyone who gets close will be pulled into the abyss of pain. Without hesitation, Yuan raised his hand and pressed lightly. A strange attack was launched on the corpse. Bang! This corpse was crushed and destroyed abruptly, turning into countless flying rotten meat. Only that ferocious crying face was not affected, but fell off naturally. The Source of Sorrow. Grade. 6-star Weird Puzzle. Introduction. A complex composed of countless negative emotions such as pain, sorrow, sadness, etc. Try to control it. You will kill your own sorrow, or be killed by sorrow. Yuan looked at this crying face, slightly taken aback. This harvest was beyond his expectation, far exceeded his expectations. It turned out to be another 6-star weird puzzle, and, like the Source of Happiness before it, it belongs to that kind of weird jigsaw puzzle related to consciousness. In this way, count the dilapidated residence sent by the Secret Service Department. 3 things related to consciousness are completely enough. Thus, Yuan can achieve his previously set goals. Utilize the great power of the dark myth, forcefully combine these 3 strange materials with supreme power, and create a brand new myth and strangeness related to consciousness. In this way, Yuan completely made up for the lack of consciousness. If you encounter similar situations in the future, you will definitely not be beaten passively like today. But, before officially starting to create and consuming the Source of Happiness, Yuan wanted to try his previous idea. Ignite happiness, you will get everything. He wants to know, what is hidden behind this sentence given by the horror game? He put the Source of Happiness on the ground. Then he raised the number 2 inferior toy gun. There was one last bullet in the gun. Weird puzzles are a very special existence, which seems to be the most essential thing in horror games. It will not be damaged by any means. At most, it absorbs and devours like a myth, and seizes the power of the puzzle. Therefore, Yuan is not worried about whether this experiment will cause irreparable damage to the Source of Happiness. Boom! The last bloody eyeball shot out. The number 2 inferior toy gun was also completely shattered. Yuan looked solemnly. The eyes stared at him for a moment. He really wanted to know if his guess was right or not. The distorted, smiling face of the Source of Happiness lay quietly on the ground. The moment the bullet hits it, a strange white illusory flame that seemed not to belong to this world suddenly roared up. There is a breath of happiness attached to the Source of Happiness. Eyeball bullets can ignite happiness. This is the weird rule. But at the same time, spooky puzzles will not be destroyed. So no matter how big this illusory flame burns, the Source of Happiness remained unmoved. Even the vaguely eerie laughter became a little louder. The 2 rules form a kind of hedging in the dark. Yuan could feel it. In that illusory flame, the rules of hedging seem to be giving birth to a brand new thing. What is it? He does not know, but he is full of anticipation. After a long time, the illusory white flame finally disappeared. And what remains, not just the previous Source of Happiness. There is also a small white note. It looks ordinary. There doesn't seem to be anything special about it, like those post-it notes that are so common in grocery stores. But Yuan witnessed the birth of this note all the way. How could this be a useless scrap of paper? Yuan took a step forward. Pick up this note. And at the moment when the fingertips touched the note, suddenly there was a figure in front of Yuan. He was dressed in rags, unkempt, like a tramp. A pair of strange eyes without pupils stared straight at Yuan. A chill that made the hair stand on end came to the face. This is a very dangerous weird creature. Even more dangerous than a dead crying clown. Yuan was shocked. Subconsciously throwing away the note, he took a step back. The surging and chaotic air was released. The primordial and sacred chaotic ghosts swept towards that figure. But suddenly, the strange figure disappeared. No trace of existence was left. Even with the use of chaotic ghosts, no clues could be found. It was as if just now was just an illusion. That strange figure had never appeared before. It can't be an illusion. Yuan shook his head. Very decisive and authentic. Maybe someone else might be hallucinating. But he can't. He has 3 6-star elementary myths and strange feedbacks, and now the level of terror is infinitely close to that of a 6-star intermediate. All perceptions have been terribly enhanced. Even if 1,000 meters away, there is a fluctuation in the trajectory of a strange air, he can still detect it. Such things as hallucinations have long since missed him. The appearance of that figure seems to be because of this white note? Gu Yuan hesitated for a moment. Then 190 picked up the white note. Sure enough, that weird figure appeared again. He stared at Gu Yuan gloomily, without saying a word, motionless. In Gu Yuan's eyes, complex and mysterious bloodshot blood surged from the runes. He used the power of the original pupil. Under the vision of the original pupil, this weird figure has become a lot more illusory, but it still exists. An incomparably rich and strange air constantly revolved around him. So, my judgment is not wrong. This weird figure really exists, and this white note is a medium to form a connection with it. He is not here, but should exist in a special strange place. Gu Yuan analyzed the current situation. Until this time, the bloody screen of the horror game appeared in front of him belatedly. Wish notes. Grade. 7-star cursed props. Introduction. Write down your wish on a sticky note, and your wish will be fulfilled. But please remember that the fulfillment of your wish is not free. Maybe you will lose something. Gu Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. In the depths of the eyes, there is a ray of light passing by. This seemingly inconspicuous white note is actually a 7-star weird prop. This harvest is indeed a bit too amazing. Moreover, the power attached to this white little one is also extremely terrifying. Make a wish. This is already a strange power that is close to the law of words. It is an extreme idealism. By igniting the source of happiness, I got this Xiaowang sticky note with Su Xia's power. The previous task prompt is, light the joy, and you will get everything. Wish, get everything. That's what it means. However, the price of making a wish is a bit heavy. Gu Yuan whispered to himself. The bloody screen was vague. Maybe something will be lost? This is actually a gamble. Perhaps the lost thing will be very insignificant, just a particularly weak and strange item, or even a piece of strange money, a hair. But it could also be something extremely precious. For example, a relative around me, such as my own memory, such as the strange power that I have worked so hard to obtain, and it may even directly remove my life. According to Gu Yuan's guess, the weird figure connected by this wish note, perhaps it is a terrifying existence with extremely powerful attacks. When the wish comes true, that weird figure will come out of that distant and mysterious weird place, come to reality, and take the corresponding price himself. With Gu Yuan's current strength, he still can't fight against this weird figure. He hesitated a little. Gu Yuan carefully put away this wish note. He doesn't want to make a wish just yet, but who can tell what the future holds? A powerful and terrifying curse item like this can be used as a whole card, and perhaps one day in the future, it will come in handy. Immediately afterwards, Gu Yuan picked up the source of happiness again. The experiment has been successfully completed. Then next, it's time to start spinning new dark myths. End of chapter. Chapter 73. With a thought, Gu Yuan's figure appeared in the vast and endless mythical space. Endless chaotic air floats and swims. Everything seems primitive and mysterious. There are countless twisted and terrifying characters engraved in the void. This is the content of the dark myth that Gu Yuan made up before. They will not disappear, eternal and immortal. Just like the traces left by the Creator God, they are sacred books for future generations to look up to. At the bottom, there is a long and terrifying abyss, and a torrent of blood. When fabricating a dark myth, the myth space will spontaneously change to form a new landform according to the content of the myth. This is a truly groundbreaking creation. I looked around for a while. Gu Yuan withdrew his mind. He raised his hand slightly. 3 materials that had been prepared long ago appeared in front of him. A hideous, distorted smile, sad painful crying face, and an ancient book that is old and yellow, but filled with a mysterious atmosphere. These 3 things are all related to that mysterious and untouchable consciousness. Why do creatures become conscious? Is consciousness the same as the soul that people often say? What kind of world would it be if there were only consciousness but no body? Gu Yuan doesn't quite understand these philosophical questions. But this does not hinder his creation. As for what dark myths to fabricate and which myths to create, Gu Yuan had already made plans. He coughed lightly and cleared his throat. Then speak without hesitation. The mouth contains the constitution of heaven, and the words follow the law. It's here. His words are the highest, most sacred and most inalterable origin. The air of chaos danced wildly, transforming into runes and blood characters with supreme power, branding the void. In the heavens and worlds, there are endless creatures. After the fate is broken, everything that comes from the heavens and the earth will return to the heavens and the earth. The blood of endless creatures gathers to form a long river of blood that runs through the heavens. The sins of endless beings will flow into the abyss to endure the final judgment. And the consciousness of endless beings can't dissipate, wandering in the abyss for endless years, nourishing the mother tree of souls that covers infinite time and space. At the bottom of the mythical space, the deep and huge black abyss shook violently. Under the control of a kind of incomprehensible brilliant power, an extremely terrifying and mysterious giant ancient tree grew out. The trunk is extremely huge and magnificent, as if it can cover countless worlds and cut off thousands of universes. Gu Yuan's face remained unchanged. He had long anticipated this change. The fabrication of dark myths would have caused some incredible changes in this mythical space. He just suspended in midair calmly. Continue to speak indifferently. I don't know how many billions of years have passed, and a terrifying creature was spontaneously bred on the soul mother tree. He is a strange aggregate of consciousness, with distorted Buddha nature, depraved divinity and collapsed humanity. Born from the soul mother tree, she is born with the right to penetrate into the consciousness of all things. When he wept, all things mourned with him. When he smiles, all beings rejoice with him. Holding the mysterious ancient book accompanying it in his hand, the ancient book is connected to a certain terrible world. When he starts whispering that weird scripture, your soul will no longer be yours. His real name is called Spirit-Hunting Demon Buddha, Evil Golden Cicada. When Gu Yuan's sacred voice uttered the last sentence of his real name, the huge and mysterious ancient book below suddenly bloomed a flower. Black, white, red, yellow, countless colors are combined together to build this mysterious and enchanting flower. The source of happiness, the source of sorrow, and the worn-out ancient books that were suspended in midair all trembled slightly. Immediately, the 3 six-star weird materials all fell down and poured into the flowers as if they were being pulled by an invisible force. And then, this enchanting flower is in full bloom. A figure stood up. He is bald. She was wearing a gorgeous cassock. One side was black like ink, and the other side was scarlet like blood. Holding a yellowed ancient book in his hand, it looks like some kind of sacred scripture. And the most terrible. Yes, he has 3 different faces on the same head. On the left is a crying face of incomparable sorrow and sympathy. On the right is an extremely crazy and excited smiling face. The one in the middle is expressionless and indifferent. A horrible cold breath gushed out from him, filling the space between the heaven and the earth. Congratulations. The 4th dark myth. Make it up. You have created a new mythical monster. Based on the grade of the weird material itself and its fit with the dark myth, the strength of this weird creature is 6-star top. Spiritual Demon Buddha, Evil Golden Cicada. Level of Terror, 6-star top level. Introduction. He controls the mysterious power of consciousness and possesses unparalleled authority. He walks in the soul world of all things, and unknowingly brings the shadow of death to all living beings. At the moment of appearance, Xie Jinshan turned to look at Gu Yuan. The 3 different faces, the cold face, the crying face, and the smiling face, were full of deep fanaticism and respect. Holding an ancient book in one hand, he raised it up to Gu Yuan as a Sunday salute. Amitabha, my lord is eternal. The 3 mouths spoke in unison, strange and inexplicable. Gu Yuan nodded slightly. His eyes were focused on this brand new mythical monster. Seriously feel his breath. Xie Jinshan lived up to his expectations. Even more terrifying than he expected. Same as I conceived before. Through the supremacy of the dark myth, Xie Jinshan successfully connected to that dilapidated ancient book. Before using the dilapidated ancient book, the consciousness of the user and the enemy will both be drawn into the world of the book. Whether you can come out depends on luck. It is a very dangerous double-edged sword. And now it's different. The evil Golden Cicada has controlled the power of the ancient book, replacing the ancient book itself as the key to enter the world of books. That is to say, now I can freely enter and exit that mysterious book world without worrying about getting lost in it. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. The eyes are full of sparkling brilliance. This is a very important change. In the future confrontation with other strange creatures, it is a very useful hole card. In case of encountering something particularly powerful and terrifying, he can forcibly pull his consciousness into the book world and trap him. And this is not the limit of the evil Golden Cicada, although he can only act as a medium connecting the world in the book now. But with the continuous development of his own level of terror, his control over the world in the book will also become stronger. Sooner or later, he will completely control the world in the book and let the whole world in the book change according to his will. Be that world, the real, supreme God. After a moment of contemplation, Yuan withdrew his mind. You should also have ghosts, let me see. Xie Jinshan's face was indifferent, and she chanted the Buddha's name in an extremely hoarse and gloomy tone. Nothing has changed around. There are only crazy laughter and mournful cries constantly echoing. His ghosts is invisible, a unique realm built entirely of laughter and cries. In this field, laughter and cries will continue to echo, becoming more and more terrifying. Yuan nodded. It is a very correct choice to smash 3 6-star weird materials related to consciousness and to cultivate the evil Golden Cicada at any cost. Even ghosts and creatures are actually stream of consciousness. It's scary. From now on, in terms of consciousness, Yuan's shortcomings will be filled. The threat to Yuan caused by the weird attack on consciousness will be greatly reduced. This is a very important step. Moreover, with the addition of the evil Golden Cicada, that means Yuan can go a step further on the road of building a variety of dark mythical ghosts. But each additional layer of ghosts and creatures is superimposed. Its complexity will explode. That delicate balance needs to be carefully studied. It cannot be accomplished in a moment. Yuan is not eager for quick success, but a heartbeat, leaving the mythical space. The current Haicheng amusement park looks a bit lonely. Those human players who entered the amusement park before were either dead, or they managed to complete the task by luck and fled without looking back. Yuan raised his head and looked into the distance. There is a Ferris wheel full of corpses and a winding roller coaster track full of a cold and weird atmosphere. But Yuan has lost interest. The most terrifying existence in this amusement park should be the crying face Oda. The rewards that the remaining rides can provide are extremely limited. For the current Yuan, there is no help at all. He stepped decisively and walked towards the exit of the amusement park. At the door, 5 paper figurines were waiting quietly. They are keenly aware that Master Yin's level of terror has gone up to another level, but they were not surprised. On the contrary, there is a sense of naturalness. It's not normal if the level of horror doesn't increase for an unrivaled figure like the Grand Master. My lord, it's still dark. Why don't you go back to the old house and rest? The paper figurine asked cautiously. You don't need to go to the ancient house. Just go back to Fengqing overnight. Yuan opened his mouth lightly and gave an order. The matter in Haicheng has come to an end. It's time to prepare for the 6th night's Red Moon Feast. This strange event, caused by the red moon hanging high in the sky, involves some kind of terrible secret. In Haicheng's safe zone, Hu Tianqiu raised his hand and wiped the cold sweat off his head. He looked at the familiar environment. A look of excitement flickered in his eyes. By this time, he still felt a bit like a dream. Such a terrifying bumper car project, I actually came back alive. Thanks to the big guy. Dad. A sweet cry sounded. A little girl in a princess dress ran over, followed by a woman in her 30s. This is Hu Tianqiu's wife and daughter. It's time to wait for you. This night, I was worried, for fear that you would not come back alive. The death rate in Haicheng Amusement Park is recognized as high. Wife speaks softly. Hu Tianqiu also smiled wryly. Haicheng Amusement Park is indeed very dangerous. I was also lucky. I met a big boss to protect me. Otherwise, I might be a puddle of minced meat by now. He quickly recounted his experience in the amusement park tonight. The wife was also terrified when she heard it. My heart is full of joy. Fortunately, there is a big boss to help, by the way. What's the name of this big boss? Hu Tianqiu shook his head. I didn't dare to ask. His wife gave Hu Tianqiu a reproachful look. Then he was extremely serious, solemn, and authentic. This is an incomparably heavy life-saving grace, and we can't repay it. According to the customs of our hometown, it is to set up a longevity tablet for the benefactor, burn incense and kowtow every day, and pray for the benefactor's good fortune and longevity. Even if there is no name, we have to set up this tablet. I'm going to get things ready soon. The wife prepared a red tablet. The material is a bit rough, but it is obviously carved with great care. On it is written the words, "The benefactor of the amusement park will live forever." Hu Tianqiu and his wife, as well as their youngest daughter, all looked solemn and extremely serious. They held up the 3 bamboo incense sticks, knelt down on the ground with great respect, and kowtowed 3 times towards the longevity tablet. May my benefactor be free from disease and disaster, turn bad luck into good luck, and sweep away all the weirdness. And in the dark, there is a completely undetectable, extremely slight, almost invisible subtle power floating out, through some kind of incredible mysterious channel, quietly drifted into the distance. A full scarlet moon hung high in the sky, cast a strange red light on a dark and deserted path. The 5 paper figurines carried the coffin strangely and jumped forward rapidly. They are faithfully carrying out Gu Yuan's orders. Rush to Fengqing, and in the coffin, Gu Yuan, who was originally researching how to construct the 5-fold dark mythical ghost, suddenly sensed something. It seemed that there was an unknown mysterious force quietly attached to him. His eyes were cold and severe, and he turned his head suddenly. In an instant, dense rune bloodshots appeared in the eyes. The primordial pupil is running quietly. Gu Yuan wanted to see what it was that was so secretly implicated in him. An extremely slender, extremely illusory, almost imperceptible transparent thread that could be torn off at will appeared in Gu Yuan's field of vision. This is... Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. I tentatively touched this illusory thread. Vaguely, it seemed to hear pious prayers ringing. It seems to see a small family kowtowing to a memorial tablet respectfully. A vague realization appeared in his, Qianhao's, heart. He suddenly understood. What is this illusory thread that suddenly appeared? It's a kind of belief. It is a mysterious, elusive and mysterious link. It is a strange existence that has surpassed the scope of ordinary people's comprehension, condensed the purest expectation and gratitude. If it is not the most sincere soul, it is impossible to form this mysterious thread of belief. Before this, Gu Yuan never thought that in this world, beliefs actually existed in reality. He hesitated a little. Gu Yuan lifted the coffin lid. He looked at the red moon in the sky. In the field of vision of the original pupil, Hongyue changed again. It has become that incomparably ferocious and terrifying huge eyeball. Before, Gu Yuan only noticed this terrifying eyeball. But he didn't see that behind the eyeball, there was still that seemingly endless transparent thread that was implicated. That is from all the heavens and worlds, countless beings sing and praise the great evil god. This made Gu Yuan also realize a deep core. Perhaps, the reason why the evil god is an evil god has a special relationship with this thread of belief. This is really an unexpected harvest. However, the power of this kind of belief is too mysterious. At my current level, I can only see it, but cannot use it. When my level of terror increases to a sufficient level, there may be room to use it. Gu Yuan muttered to himself. Suppress the complicated thoughts in my heart. At present, it is enough to confirm that this silk thread of faith does not cause unnecessary harm to him. We'll talk about other things later. And at this moment, the coffin shook slightly, suddenly stopped and lifted. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. This hasn't reached Fengqing yet. The surrounding area is obviously a wilderness, and there are not even any buildings belonging to human society. What happened? He asked coldly. The trembling voices of the weird paper figurines sounded. My lord, the situation ahead is not quite right. End of chapter. Chapter 74. Gu Yuan frowned slightly. Something wrong? He is aware of the weird situation of the paper figurine, although the level of horror is not high. But there are a few particularly notable features. Unimaginable intelligence, amazing moving speed, and a keen sense of danger. When I was in Fengqing No. 3 primary school, the violent place unexpectedly lost control and rioted. Terrifying black smoke filled the air, and all the strange creatures around died suddenly. But the weird paper figurines sensed the danger immediately and escaped early, without being affected by the black smoke at all. Therefore, their judgment of the situation is extremely accurate in most cases. In the front area, I'm afraid there is a big problem. Next moment, Gu Yuan sat up directly from the coffin. His sharp eyes looked forward. Ahead was an empty field, overgrown with chaotic weeds. At first glance, nothing can be seen at all, as if nothing exists. But there are a lot of weird footprints on the ground. Not just human footprints. There are also horseshoe prints and rut marks. Moreover, these imprints are still spreading forward. Old footprints are covered, and new ones reappear. It's as if there is an invisible army marching hurriedly, but it doesn't make any extra noise. The surroundings were incomparably quiet, incomparably dead. It's kind of creepy. Gu Yuan's eyes were serious. Use the original pupil again. He really wanted to know what left these footprints. Next moment, the scene in front of me has changed. In the wilderness that was originally empty, suddenly there were countless figures. As Gu Yuan thought before, this is exactly what a massive army is. Countless soldiers wore tattered armor, held decayed and rusty weapons in their hands, and the wounds on their bodies had festered and turned black. All of them looked indifferently, without any expression, and marched forward stiffly. A large number of war horses are mixed among them. The armor is also shattered. Scars are everywhere, and they will raise their heads from time to time, making a silent neigh. It looks like an army that has gone through an extremely tragic battle. They seem to have lost a battle and suffered heavy losses, but still maintain an amazing will to fight. Exudes an extremely cold and strange murderous aura. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat. A terrifying word suddenly flooded into his mind. Soldiers make excuses. The scene in front of me is so similar to the legendary soldiers crossing the border. These soldiers are weird, and the level of terror is not particularly high, but it can't stand the large number. At the same time, there is a strange resonance between them. When an entire army unites together, that terrifying and cold aura seems to be able to overwhelm everything. 310 Gu Yuan even had a terrifying premonition. Even if a real evil god stood in front of this army, it would most likely be crushed. At the same time, Gu Yuan felt that there seemed to be a strange burning sensation coming from the mythical space. He was slightly taken aback. Only then did I find out. It was the 4 ghost copper coins with the words Yuming Tongbao written on them, which were shaking slightly, emitting a terrifying temperature. What's happening here? Is there any connection between these ghost copper coins and this terrifying soldier? He subconsciously moved his mind. Take out these 4 ghost copper coins. Terrifying things happen at the same time. Those soldiers who were marching forward neatly seemed to have sensed something, suddenly turned around and looked over. Countless cold gazes suddenly concentrated on Gu Yuan's body. The strange air in all directions seems to be rioting because of this. The temperature plummeted, the weeds withered, the trees withered, and a thick layer of hoarfrost formed on the ground. It's like entering the chilling winter in an instant. The 5 paper figurines were all scalp-numb, trembling with fright. They subconsciously wanted to pick up the coffin and escape, but found out with horror. Under the watchful eyes of this soldier army, they completely lost the ability to act independently. For a while, they all want to cry but have no tears. How can you always encounter such weird and horrible things when you hang out with the old man? Gu Yuan was also a little creepy. I felt a horrible chill. However, it seems to be because of a special personality. He didn't immediately lose his ability to act like the paper figurine. If you want to go, you can go. But Gu Yuan was in no hurry to make a choice. Just stood there quietly. Look at this terrifying army of soldiers. The change in this army of ghost soldiers was caused by ghost coins. Maybe it can give Gu Yuan some different clues. Help Gu Yuan spy on the secret behind the ghost coin. The soldiers did not move. Gu Yuan didn't move either. The two sides maintained such a quiet and dead state of staring at each other. Only the cold wind howled. The weird paper figurines only feel that there are 2 wars bang. After a long time, a dark soldier riding on a war horse who looked like an ancient general raised his hand in a strange way. Throw out 4 ghost copper coins that are exactly the same as in Gu Yuan's hand. Clang. The copper coins hit the ground and spun continuously, exuding a strange aura. CBFD, it's like a signal. These ghostly soldiers who had paused turned their heads at the same time, stopped looking at Gu Yuan, and resumed their marching posture. Their figures quickly disappeared. I can't even see the original pupil. It was as if they were only in this real space, and after a brief moment, they went to some unknowable, mysterious place. Until this time, the weird paper figurines finally breathed a sigh of relief. He fell to the ground directly, as if he was about to fall into collapse. Gu Yuan frowned. Gently raise your hand. The air of chaos is surging. Take the 4 remaining ghost copper coins into your hands. This seemed to be a gift from the soldier general. My previous guess was not wrong. Ghost copper coin does involve a certain secret of Liangdong game. But what kind of relationship is there between ghost copper coins and these soldiers? Where do these ghost soldiers come from, and where are they going? Are they fighting with something? What kind of existence can make such a terrifying army of soldiers retreat? Gu Yuan muttered to himself. He has actually touched a lot of things now, but inextricably linked, extremely broken. Lacking a real thread, connect them in series. In front of his eyes, a bloody screen appeared. You have come across a terrifying army. This brief encounter made you realize something elusive. You have triggered a new mission. Mission objective. Find the lost throne. Mission description. The failed idealists have nowhere to bury, and the shadows of the past cannot be dispelled. You see, the throne sank in the deep sea of disillusionment, following the great army in the unobtainable samsara. Note, this task is a long-term task, with no time limit and no penalty for failure. Yuan frowned. Another specious but vague description. No time limit. The location is also not specified. It's confusing. There is no way to cut into this task at all. And, what's even weirder, there is no failure penalty for this mission, as if it was bound to fail. It seems that the horror game itself believes that this task is impossible to achieve. I can only take it slowly. Anyway, there is no time limit for this mission. When you find more in-depth clues, you can go to investigate later. As long as my horror level is raised to a high enough level, these fogs covering my eyes will naturally disappear. Yuan put away the ghost copper coins. Anyway, this encounter is not worthless. He got 4 new ghost copper coins. There are now 8 of them. It is one step closer to his previous goal of creating a copper coin sword specially made of ghost copper coins. He turned his head, looked at the paper man lying on the ground strangely, and spoke lightly. Have you slowed down? No problem, let's go on. After all, he lay back in the coffin. The weird paper figurines hurried to get up, lifted the coffin, and continued to function. Except for this wave of soldiers passing through the border. It was peaceful all the way. Soon, the weird paper figurines returned to Yuan apartment in Fengqing. Yuan was lying in a coffin. It never came out. Concentrate on researching and constructing the balance of the 5 layers of dark myths and ghosts. Quick. The black sun rises and sets. The world has once again ushered in a night of terror. Until this time, the coffin lid was suddenly lifted. Yuan stretched comfortably with a satisfied smile on his face. It finally worked. His eyes lit up. The strength of the 5th-level dark mythical ghost is much stronger than before, and it involves 2 different dimensions of reality and consciousness at the same time. Once unfolded, it can launch an unimaginably strange attack on the enemy's body and consciousness at the same time. This is a brand new hole card for Yuan. He glanced at the red moon hanging high outside the window. Then he took out a bronzing red invitation card. Red Moon Feast Invitation. Originally, there were no words on the invitation. But tonight, under the moonlight, suddenly, a piece of distorted text emerged. Dear guest, it is my great honor to invite you to come to Tongda Hotel and participate in the Red Moon Feast tonight. I am looking forward to your visit with great anticipation. Your faithful friend, devout worshipper of the Red Moon. Yours sincerely. And at the same time, a bloody screen emerged. You have received a special invitation letter. With this, you are qualified to participate in a terrible feast. You have triggered a new mission. Brilliant banquet. The first stage mission objective. Successfully arrive at Tongda Hotel and enter the banquet hall. Mission description. After careful consideration, you decide to participate in this grand banquet. But the road doesn't seem to be smooth. There are some people who desperately want to participate in the banquet, but they didn't get the invitation letter. Mission success reward. Unified settlement after the completion of all phases of the mission. Mission failure penalty. You will be permanently disqualified from participating in the Red Moon Feast. Yuan scanned the mission description. There was a playful look in his eyes. Interesting. This simple task description actually hides a huge amount of information. On the surface, it seems to be just to remind Yuan that this trip is dangerous. There are certain beings who have taken a fancy to the invitation letter of the Red Moon Feast in Yuan's hand, and may try to snatch it. But in fact, there is a very important deep information hidden in these descriptions. Why are those existences eager to participate in this so-called Red Moon Feast? This shows that at the Red Moon Feast, there must be something extremely important to these existences. Most likely some kind of huge interest is involved. If you want to grab something from me, you have to weigh yourself first. Yuan smiled faintly, did not take it to heart. Immediately, he lay down, pulled the coffin lid, and ordered in a cold voice. Go to Tongda Hotel. At the same time, in the Fengqing safety zone, a beautiful woman in formal attire walked in quickly. It is one of the 5 veterans of the Horror Affairs Department. Li Jiaojiao. There is no superfluous expression on her face. She is shrewd and capable, and she is not angry or pretentious. Elderly Yuan, why did you come here yourself? After Xiao Qinghua and Xia Qingzhu heard the news, they rushed over to greet him. There was an unconcealable surprise in his eyes. Li Jiaojiao shook the file bag in her hand. Look solemn. I promised Mr. Gu before that I would collect information for Mr. Gu. This involves some very confidential things, which must be handed over to Mr. Gu in person. At the same time, the headquarters meeting decided to arrange a special person to be stationed in Fengqing to be responsible for the connection with Mr. Gu in the future. And I am that person. From now on, I will be in charge of all the affairs of Fengqing. The two of you, as well as the other staff of Fengqing's affairs department, directly accept my orders. Heard the words. Both Xiao Qinghua and Xia Qingzhu were shocked. The headquarters attaches more importance to Mr. Gu than they expected. It's fine to organize personnel, set up institutions, and collect and analyze intelligence. He even specially dispatched a veteran to come over. Before this, the elders have always been sitting in the capital and taking care of the overall situation. This is the first time that this kind of voluntary transfer away from the capital. Mr. Gu's face is truly beyond heaven. Xia Qingzhu smiled bitterly in her heart. Originally, Fengqing was just a particularly non-existent place. But it seems that since Mr. Gu was born, everything has changed. The night watchmen are here, and so are the elders of the headquarters. She even has an inexplicable intuition. The sudden appearance of the 18 most ominous places in Fengqing may also be inextricably related to Mr. Gu. And at this moment, a staff member from the affairs department hurried over. She looked a little flustered, and there was a deep fear in her eyes. It was as if something extremely terrifying had happened. Captain Xiao, Sister Qingzhu, something is wrong. Xiao Qinghua frowned, asked in a hurry, what happened? The staff member licked his lips, his voice hoarse. We have just detected that there have been special changes in the 7 fierce places in Fengqing. Some strange creatures in the land of great evil have come out of the land of great evil, suspected to be looking for something. Hearing this, the faces of Li Jiaojiao, Xiao Qinghua, Xia Qingzhu, and others all changed. The meaning of these simple words is too terrifying to know. Although the place of great evil is dangerous and unpredictable, it has actually been in a stable state, except for the extremely rare out of control. Basically, there will be no substantial impact on the outside world. The weird creatures among them will basically follow certain rules and only move inside the place of great evil. Therefore, the Great Ominous Land is actually not a big threat to ordinary human players. But now, for some unknown reason, the original rules have been broken. Those strange creatures wandering in the land of great evil will leave on their own initiative. If this phenomenon is not contained in time, find the reason behind this phenomenon. This is likely to brew into an extremely terrifying and weird disaster. Perhaps the entire Fengqing human players will usher in a terrifying disaster. Captain Xiao, immediately find a way to notify the wandering human players and be on high alert. Captain Xia, please contact other cities to see if there is a similar phenomenon. You, take me to the monitoring room. I want to see for myself what's wrong. Li Jiaojiao's eyes were sharp, ordered decisively without hesitation. The Horror Affairs Department in Fengqing began to work intensively. Everyone is facing natural enemies. End of chapter. Chapter 75. Fengqing Safety Zone. Monitoring Room. There is a row of purple transparent crystal balls here, surging with a strong, strange atmosphere. They are all cursed props. There is only one function. That is, the scene that can remotely show a certain area. Even weird creatures that are good at hiding can be detected. The Horror Affairs Department specially uses them as a tool to monitor the situation in the murderous place. Now, there are 7 crystal balls, which are displaying very similar pictures. In this eerie and fierce place, for some unknown reason, the doors suddenly opened and a dark wind blew out. One after another, extremely distorted and tyrannical strange creatures came out of the place of great evil. They first looked around in a daze. Then it was like feeling a very special attraction to stride in a certain direction. Elder Li Jiaojiao's expression was extremely serious. There was a strong fear in his eyes. Even through the crystal ball, she can still feel the terrifying and evil aura emanating from those weird creatures, which makes her feel a little horrified. To know, she is the veteran of the Horror Affairs Department, the existence that truly stands at the pinnacle of human tricksters. It is extremely dangerous to have so many strange creatures that can pose a threat to her wandering in the streets and alleys of Fengqing. It may cause a devastating blow to the human tricksters in Fengqing. Continue to follow up and monitor closely. At all costs, we must find out where these strange creatures are going. Li Jiaojiao ordered sharply. A large number of staff immediately began to manipulate the curse props, track and locate, summarize, and analyze information. Soon, an analysis report was placed in front of Li Jiaojiao. So, the place where these weird creatures gather is in Tongtian Hotel? There is also an extremely mysterious and murderous place. Why did these strange creatures move from one diabolical place to another diabolical place? Li Jiaojiao muttered to herself. Some can't understand. An instinct was telling her. Tonight, in that Tongda Hotel, something extremely terrifying and mysterious must be happening. Boom. The door was knocked open. Xia Qingzhu rushed in hastily. Her face was very ugly. Old Li Yuan, I have already contacted other cities. Several surrounding cities, Yuancheng, Jicheng, Tongcheng, have similar phenomena. The land of great evil suddenly opened, and strange creatures came out to wander. However, these strange creatures did not attack the human players they encountered, but simply ignored them. It's like being pulled by something, moving towards a fixed goal. And according to observational research, the direction they are moving... Xia Qingzhu's voice paused slightly. The voice is hoarse. It was as if he was talking about something extremely terrifying and frightening. It's Fengcheng. Li Jiaojiao was even more terrified. The strange creatures in other cities' fierce places also rushed to Fengcheng? What exactly is going on? What is there in Fengcheng? She was a little puzzled. Immediately afterwards, she turned her head, and her sharp eyes focused on the location on the map that represented the Tongda Hotel. There is definitely something wrong with this hotel. Something seems to be brewing there. Shall I go and have a look? She hesitated. She might not be able to cope with the danger there. And at this moment, a staff member suddenly exclaimed, "Old man, there is a situation." Li Jiaojiao didn't dare to neglect her, and hurriedly stepped forward. He came to the crystal ball. She could see a tall male corpse covered in rot and maggots standing in the middle of the road. Blocked a team of paper figures carrying coffins. The coffin opens. A man sits up. The crystal ball immediately seemed to be disturbed by some invisible and weird. There is no way to reflect the appearance of that man. Only a chaotic outline can be seen. Li Jiaojiao's heart skipped a beat. Then his eyes became more focused. Paper dolls carry the coffin? That's Mr. Gu? On an ordinary street. The paper figurine carried the coffin strangely and rushed to Tongda Hotel. But suddenly, a male corpse appeared in the center of the road ahead. He was rotten all over, exuding a strong smell of corpses and dragging a bloody butcher's knife in his hand. It was as if he had just walked out of a slaughterhouse. A pair of terrifying eye sockets wriggling with maggots stared indifferently at the coffin ahead. The weird paper figurines were slightly taken aback, immediately deflected a little direction. Prepare to bypass this male corpse. Now that the red moon is in the lead, it is the time when weird creatures are rampant. Occasionally, it's normal to encounter strange things. You can't miss the big master's affairs. But something weird happened. While they turned their heads, the body of the rotten male corpse also shifted instantly. No matter how weird the paper figurine moves, the rotting male corpse is always in the middle of their field of vision. Obstinately block their way. The weird paper figurines looked at each other and realized that something was wrong. They carefully lowered the coffin and spoke in low voices with hoarse voices. "My lord, something is here to make trouble." There was a creak. The coffin opens. Gu Yuan sat up slowly. He was mentally prepared for this. It's already mentioned in the mission description. This trip, the journey is not smooth. In front, the rotting male corpse raised its empty hand. The Adam's apple was mechanically beating up and down. A cold voice was squeezed out from his throat. "Invite. Please." Every word seemed to carry a curse. Weird and scary. Security area monitoring room. Li Jiaojiao and Xia Qingzhu looked at the scene in the crystal ball without blinking. When the rotten male corpse opened its mouth and said the 3 words of invitation letter, both of them were shocked. There was a strong urge. It seemed that he wanted to take out the invitation letter and offer it to the rotting male corpse with both hands. After a brief trance, Li Jiaojiao woke up with a start. She couldn't help shivering fiercely. Terrible. This rotten male corpse has some kind of extremely terrifying and strange power. Even through the crystal ball, it can directly affect them. It is indeed a terrifying existence that came out of the place of great evil. However, in the crystal ball, Gu Yuan was motionless. It seemed that this terrifying and strange power had no effect on him at all. Gu Yuan, poker-faced, nodded slightly. He didn't panic, even commenting and analyzing. Nice weird power. Essentially, sound is actually used to interfere and influence the consciousness of living beings. Similar to the crying clown before. However, His level of terror is far from that crying clown. After experiencing the Haicheng amusement park incident, Gu Yuan's consciousness is protected by a balance between the power of the crying clown and the power of the toy gun. Coupled with the subsequent fabrication of dark myths, the evil Golden Cicada was born out of nowhere. This even increased Gu Yuan's consciousness intensity by a huge amount. Just relying on the strange attack of the rotten male corpse, it can't cause effective harm to him at all. And Gu Yuan's indifferent attitude, it seemed to anger the tall, rotting male corpse. He suddenly took a step forward. The butcher's knife that was still dripping blood was raised suddenly. Out of sight, there is an extremely strange and terrifying force coming. In the monitoring room, Li Jiaojiao and Xia Qingzhu were both terrified. They already felt the sharpness coming to them, as if it could split everything. Li Jiaojiao has an intuition. If she faced this terrifying and weird attack head-on, I'm afraid it will be dismembered instantly by this kind of power. But Gu Yuan just raised his hand leisurely. The evil Golden Cicada appeared instantly, holding the mysterious ancient book in his hand. The cassock on his body moved without wind, and an extremely strange aura surged. Amitabha, the sea of suffering is boundless. Turn your head and be right. The Buddha's name, which was supposed to be extremely compassionate and sacred, was uttered by him, but it was full of evil and coldness. An invisible strange power emanated out, directly neutralizing the strange attack launched by the rotting male corpse. And the head of the rotting male corpse seemed to have been affected by some unknown influence. Forced to turn his head and look back. Just such an ordinary action. It was like touching an invisible switch. The terrifying and strange power was released, directly erasing all his consciousness. His tall body swayed in the air, and then fell to the ground with a plop, and all the breath of life dissipated. Spike. And it's an incomprehensibly weird spike. After all this is done, on the human face in the middle of Xie Jin Chan, there seemed to be a bit of compassion. He chanted a Buddha's name. The figure is hidden again. The mythical space was taken back by Gu Yuan. Let's go. Gu Yuan ordered casually. Lie back in the coffin. The weird paper figurines immediately picked up the coffin and jumped forward. After consciousness is obliterated, the body of the rotting male corpse lost the support of the strange force. Even a paper figurine whose horror level is only 1 star can easily crush it directly. In the monitoring room on the other side, has fallen into a deep silence. Whether it's the elderly Jiao Jiao, Xia Qingzhu, or the other staff around, none said a word. It was as if they were all, in an instant, deprived of the ability to speak. So shocking. Through the crystal ball, they witnessed this complete battle with their own eyes. So in their eyes, the rotten male corpse, which seemed invincible, was so easily crushed by Mr. Gu? What kind of terrifying power is that? The gap between these people and Gu Yuan seems to be somewhat immeasurable. Call. Li Jiaojiao took a deep breath. Ask for flour. Forcibly suppressed the shock in his heart. Can't help but sigh sincerely. Mr. Gu is the light of mankind. I don't know why this horror game appeared, and whether it will ever end, but I'm sure, if one day, this horror game can end, the person who ends the game must be Mr. Gu. Only he can end this horrible and dangerous era. Xia Qingzhu gritted her teeth slightly and said in a low voice, "The old man, these strange creatures from the place of great evil." She hasn't finished yet. Li Jiaojiao waved her hand calmly. Don't worry about it. Haven't you seen it yet? In the Tongda Hotel tonight, a horrible event that we can't imagine is happening. These strange creatures that came out of the place of great evil, as well as Mr. Gu himself, are obviously going to that place. This is no longer something we can participate in with our strength. With Mr. Gu here, everything can be properly resolved. You collect all the information tonight and send it to Mr. Gu's mobile phone, so that Mr. Gu can understand the overall changes. This is the only thing we can do. In fact, the road from Jinwan apartment to Tongda Hotel is not far. The main reason is that from time to time, a strange creature will block the way, trying to snatch the invitation letter of the Red Moon Feast. This sudden accident delayed time. All in all, along the way, he encountered 8 ferociously Gu-A. Of course, the blockage was solved lightly by Gu Yuan. These weird horror levels basically fluctuate at the 5-star level, and they belong to very fierce weird creatures. But for me now, it doesn't constitute any threat. Gu Yuan stood in front of Tongda Hotel, analyzing the current situation. Although killing all the way, he was invincible. But he didn't take it lightly. After all the weird people blocking the way on the road were the ones who didn't get the invitation letter. And those truly powerful and terrifying weird creatures don't need to block the way to snatch them. They themselves have invitations in hand. Therefore, the hotel is where the real danger lies. And at this moment, Gu Yuan's pocket shook violently. He took out his phone and glanced at the screen. It's a message from the Horror Affairs Division. The content of the message surprised Gu Yuan. What? Are these strange creatures blocking the way come from other dangerous places? It involves the Drum Tower Theater, the slaughterhouse in the south of the city, and the Beha Cemetery? Gu Yuan frowned. He originally thought that these strange creatures were just attracted by the Feast of the Red Moon, some wandering creatures. Unexpectedly, it was actually related to other murderous places. Thus, the situation is going to be more complicated than Gu Yuan expected. This kind of situation where the great ominous places are linked with each other. It was the first time I met Gu Yuan. The water in this Red Moon feast is much deeper than I imagined. Gu Yuan sighed softly. He looked up. His gaze was focused on the Tongda Hotel ahead. This is the only 5-star hotel in Fengqing. At this moment, all the lights on the 30-odd floors were turned on, and the countless floor-to-ceiling windows were polished brightly, looking extremely resplendent. It's just that all the lights are all showing a weird red color. It's like the terrifying crimson moon in the sky. Against such a strange atmosphere, this towering building looks like a tombstone. Gu Yuan did not hesitate. Step forward directly. A man in a suit who looked like a greeter stopped Gu Yuan. He was pale and bloodless, with a stiff, emotionless smile on his face. Obviously a weird creature too. Hello, sir. Do you have an invitation letter? Gu Yuan directly took out the bronzing red invitation card, handed it to the hands of the man in the suit. The man in the suit had a stiff face. He held up the invitation letter and looked at the invitation letter very seriously. It seems to be confirming the authenticity of the invitation letter. Then, next moment, he suddenly turned around and ran away. He rushed towards the gate of Tongda Hotel at an extremely fast speed. While running, the suit on his body fell off the ground like a snake shedding its skin. A somewhat erratic and illusory back was revealed. Gu Yuan was slightly taken aback. Why run? Then suddenly a sharp light flashed in his eyes. Oops, this is a fake. Originally thought that after killing the 8 weird creatures blocking the way, the obstacles to participating in the Red Moon Midsummer had been completely cleared away. Who would have thought there was such a hurdle? This weirdness is definitely not the staff of Tongda Hotel. It's a fraud. He disguised himself as a staff member and hibernated here. What we are waiting for is the moment when Gu Yuan relaxes a little. As long as he can deceive the invitation letter and then rush into the hotel gate, he will be able to replace Gu Yuan as a participant of the Red Moon Feast. You cheated on me. Can you escape? Gu Yuan snorted coldly. An extremely deep murderous intent flashed in his eyes. End of chapter.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.